Gu Yuze spoke with righteousness all over his face before turning to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan and I never had any feelings for each other from the beginning, but Uncle Yi kept forcing me. I think I've already been nice not to turn against you. Hearing what Gu Yuze said, Yi Mu Fan's tightly clenched fists nearly flew into his face. Clearly, this bastard disregarded his principles in the pursuit of profits. Seeing that his dad lost everything, he immediately started fooling around with Yi, but was afraid people would start talking, so he didn't immediately call off the engagement. Now he's saying that he endured humiliation and carried a heavy burden. He's completely shameless. Although Yi Mu Fan sneered in his heart, he purposely kept quiet and smiled wryly at Yi Wanwan. As expected, when Yi Wanwan saw Gu Yuze, she was instantly frightened and hadn't dared to say a word from the start till the end. Sorry, Mr. Yi Xiaoting. In consideration for the past friendship we had, I've been making Yi suffer for way too long. My engagement with Yi Wanwan comes to an end right now. Gu Yuze didn't even address him as Uncle Yi anymore. He turned around and promptly left with Yi after speaking. Wanwan. Yi turned towards Yi Wanwan and left with Gu Yuze with an apologetic look. This acid asterisk. Yi Xiaoting was so mad that his face turned red and his chest heaved violently. Today, he hadn't felt provoked from all the humiliation he received today, but at the moment, he was furious. Liang Wanjun pulled her daughter's hand, worried. Wanwan. Yi Mu Fan looked at the Yi Wanwan who still hadn't muttered a word and scoffed softly at her with a look of ridicule. Yi Wanwan, you're really something. You didn't even so much as let out a fart when you saw Gu Yuze. Didn't you speak so well just now in front of Daddy and Mommy? What's up? Feeling dejected from seeing him being so protective and caring towards Yi? Talk about protecting Daddy and Mommy. I bet once that Gu guy simply raises his finger and beckons you over, you'll forget about your surname, your name, who gave birth to you, and who raised you, huh? Mu Fan, stop it. Liang Wanjun shot a look at Yi Mu Fan crossly. Yi Mu Fan himphed. Did I say something wrong? You can change mountains and rivers, but not a person's nature. It's not like this hasn't happened before. Just a piece of advice, please take a good look at her tonight. If not, we never know whether we have to make a spectacle of ourselves once again. Yi Mu Fan's attitude didn't bother Yi Wanwan, and the corners of her mouth curved upwards into a lazy smile as she chuckled. Guji, you worry too much. I didn't open my mouth because I can't be bothered to speak to that person. After all, GG, people grow up and their tastes change. Today, your little sister really has to turn her nose up at level Gu Yuze's at. Yi Mu Fan was exasperated. All right, it's not easy for our family to be together like this today. So stop fighting. Liang Wanjun saw the two siblings had started fighting again and quickly tried to intervene. Yi Mu Fan suppressed the fiery rage within him and continued drinking his wine nonstop. At this moment, the banquet was halfway through. Yi took the microphone and stood on stage entertaining the guests and offered birthday wishes, naturally and unconstrained, exuding a grandeur and gracefulness. As Yi Xiaoan, his wife and the old madam were unable to rush back due to the snow. This entire grand banquet was managed solely by Yi from beginning till the end. Everything was clean and orderly, so the main guest was extremely grateful. Every guest had their eyes on Yi was full of praise for her. She's indeed worthy of being the elder's favorite granddaughter in the entire Yi family. She already had the demeanor of someone in charge of the house. If someone could marry a good wife like her, he truly has good fortune. Don't think about it. She's already been snatched up by the Gu family. Didn't you see how the two of them were inseparable tonight? The two of them are truly an ideal couple. A pair made in heaven. Tisk, I'm just afraid someone won't stop pestering him. With that said, all the guests turned towards a certain figure seated at the corner. Actually, based on looks, Yi Wanwan's a cut above her. Also, she got into Imperial Media University with such high scores and even has friendly relations with Old May. Everyone knew that saying a cut above was actually tactful. It wasn't even an exaggeration to say that Yi Wanwan's appearance today stunned everybody, not to mention her various surprising performances today. However, everyone knew that no matter how beautiful Yi Wanwan was and how outstanding she was, why did it matter? With Yi Xiaoting in this current situation, Yi Wanwan could never compare to Yi. Even if she continued pestering Gu Yuzhe, they were both in different worlds. Everyone lamented over this. When Yi was done with her speech, Gu Yuzhe suddenly walked towards the stage. Yi glanced at the man. A tinge of hesitation appeared in her eyes. Gu Yuzhe held Yi's hand. His eyes filled with tenderness as he spoke gently. Yi, I know you care about your cousin's feelings, but please accept this as I'm begging you. Please think of yourself and think of me too. I want everyone to know, the whole world to know, that you're mine. Yi listened to Gu Yuzhe's words and was very moved. In the end, she nodded. Everyone saw how Gu Yuzhe suddenly rushed to the stage. Their eyes instinctively turned to Gu Yuzhe with a hunger for juicy gossip and curiosity, unsure of what Gu Yuzhe was planning to do. Only Yi Wanwan, who was in the corner, knew that tonight, not only was Gu Yuzhe announcing the annulment of their engagement, he was also making it publicly known that he and Yi would be engaged, crushing their entire family's hopes to the ground. Just because of this incident, she made a huge din in her previous life and completely embarrassed her parents. In this life, history seemed to repeat itself. Everyone, I'm very sorry. I'll need to take up a little of your time. Gu Yuzhe held the microphone and spoke suddenly. Everyone's eyes were on the tall and handsome man on stage, waiting for him to continue. Yi Wanwan raised her head, drank the last mouthful of tea in her cup, and stood up. Yimu Fan saw Yi Wanwan stand up and immediately tensed up as instinctively grabbed her hand. Yi Wanwan, what are you trying to do? Yi Wanwan's cherry lips curled up slightly as she calmly removed her hand from Yimu Fan's grasp. None of your business. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yimu Fan was so exasperated that he stopped caring and watched as Yi Wanwan made her way, step by step, towards the stage where Gu Yuzhe and Yi were. I knew she would lose her reasoning once she saw Gu Yuzhe. Now you guys believe me, huh? There was a trace of sorrow hidden in the darkness in Yimu Fan's eyes, and his fingers were almost white from clenching his fists. If it wasn't for this bastard, his relationship with his younger sister wouldn't have turned out this way. Liang Wanjun's eyes were filled with worry as she looked at her daughter. Mu Fan, don't say that about Wanwan. She changed a lot, so I believe she won't behave too rashly. Yi Xiaoting sighed and had nothing to say. Even if his daughter lost control and did something rash, he didn't have the ability to secure his daughter's happiness as her father, so he didn't have the right to blame or stop her. After noticing the red figure walking towards the stage, everyone's eyes shifted from Gu Yuzhe and Yi to Yi Wanwan. After all, Yi Wanwan's appearance and aura were too alluring. Wherever she went, she attracted everyone's attention. Gu Yuzhe looked at the girl making her way slowly towards the stage, and his expression turned colder, bit by bit. To be fair, Yi Wanwan really changed his impression of her today, but that was about it. He would never marry a worthless woman, the daughter of an abandoned son. This kind of woman could probably be a lover or a sex partner, but she wasn't qualified to be his wife at all. Although Yi Wanwan's pestering had satisfied his vanity as a man, she overdid it and was rather irritating, especially on such an important day like today. When Yi Wanwan came closer, Gu Yuzhe immediately pulled Yi to his side to protect her, looking wary and on guard. Second young mistress Yi, is anything the matter? A smile slowly appeared on Yi Wanwan's picturesque face as she said politely, Mr. Gu, may I have the microphone, please? That smile was simply a look of fawning adoration, bedazzling all living things. Only the sound of the air conditioning running in the hall was heard. Even Gu Yuzhe went blank for a moment and narrowed his ice-cold eyes as his black pupils sized up the girl in front of him suspiciously. Yi Wanwan didn't speak either and stood there waiting. The audience exploded into a cacophony of excited murmurs. Wow! Both his new and old lovers appeared on the same stage. This is so exciting. What trouble is Yi Wanwan trying to stir up this time? Could it be a public confession of her love? Either that or she's going to make a scene. Anyway, it's not like she hasn't done any of this before. Seeing that Yi Wanwan had appeared on stage all of a sudden, Yi Hongwei's face turned slightly ugly and wanted to get someone to stop her, but Gu Yuzhe already passed the microphone over to Yi Wanwan. Thank you. Yi Wanwan took the microphone and thanked him courteously. You think too highly of yourself. Yi Wan withdrew her arm, rubbed her wrist, and said indifferently, Mr. Gu, I'm afraid you're the one who thinks too highly of himself. I really have no feelings for you at all. I'm in love with someone else. Yi Wan's expression was too calm. She didn't have any reaction when she looked at Gu Yuze, and in everyone's eyes, it didn't look like she was faking it. In love with someone else. Hearing that, Gu Yuze seemed to have thought of something when his face stiffened. Could it be? Yi Wan looked at Gu Yuze's expression and said, Mr. Gu, who have you finally thought of? You've met him before, so I don't think you want to force me to say his name in front of everyone. The second Yi Wan said all this, her phone started blinking, indicating a notification from Weibo. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. The second Yi Wan said all this, her phone started blinking, indicating a notification from Weibo. A few minutes ago, outside the Yi family's old residence, inside a certain car hidden in the shadows was a man sitting in the back seat with a cold expression. In the driver's seat, Sui had been cursing silently for almost half an hour. They were about to return to Jean Garden just now, but in the end, his master made him change route and said they were heading to another location. Then, halfway through the journey, his master suddenly told him to stop the car. He was unsure why his master wanted to go to this place they'd never seen before and why he asked him to stop the car halfway, but then he finally realized that the place where they stopped the car was close to the Yi family's old residence. Damn, going to the other location was a lie. He's deliberately passing by to see his lovely concubine, huh? Sui was cursing when Si Han's phone suddenly rang and his little heart thumped in fright. Following that, he took a glimpse and realized that the person calling was Yi Wan. Fuck. Isn't this woman inside attending her grandfather's birthday banquet? Why is she calling master at this time? As his heart pumped rapidly, in the back seat, the man paused for a moment before picking up the call. In the next second, the girl's voice sounded from the phone. Mr. Gu, may I have the microphone, please? Hearing that, the eyes of the man in the back seat darkened. Sui froze. What's the meaning of this? Yi Wan seems to be speaking to someone else? And that person has the surname Gu? It can't be. Gu Yuze, can it? Right after that, Yi Wan's voice continued on through the phone. Distinguished guests, friends, however, I'm very sorry to say that today, I'd like to announce to everyone that I, Yi Wan, would like to officially call off my engagement with Mr. Gu Yuze, Mr. Gu. I understand that you're angry, but I'm very sorry. I really don't have any feelings for you. I'm in love with someone else. At the same time in the banquet hall, after Gu Yuze heard Yi Wan's threat, a trace of iciness appeared in his eyes. He naturally didn't want people to know that his own fiancée actually became Si Han's woman. If it was any other man, he'd find him below his status. There weren't many rich sons in Imperial City he feared, but of all people, it had to be Si Han. Aristocratic families like his weren't even qualified to look up to the Si family. While Gu Yuze kept silent with a frozen expression, Yi Wan whipped her skirt around and left swiftly. At the scene, a couple of rich young masters gathered in a group and exclaimed in shock repeatedly. Damn, did I just hear wrong? Our great Prince Gu has just been dumped by someone? More than just got dumped, his fiancée even announced that she's in love with another man and wants to call off the engagement. There's a Siberian plane on his head. I didn't expect that the great prince would see this day. Gu Yuze's plan tonight was perfect. Initially call off the engagement with Yi Wan, then announce the engagement between Yi and him. If Yi Wan made a big scene in between, it would be more advantageous to him. But he never imagined that Yi Wan would make a fool out of him in the end, and now, he seemed like the one who was jilted, in a manner most humiliating for a man. Gu Yuze wasn't the only one affected. Yi's gentle and delicate little face completely stiffened. Clearly, Yi Wan was the one who was supposed to be dumped, but Yi Wan messed things up, and now, it looked like she was picking up a man Yi Wan didn't want. Yimu Fan was wide awake right now, looking at Yi Wan like he'd just seen a ghost. Liang Wanjun and Yi Xiaoting's faces were filled with astonishment as well. They obviously didn't expect their daughter to do that. Wan, Was everything you said just now true? Liang Wanjun asked nervously. Yi Wanwan thought about this carefully beforehand. Previously, because of the estranged relationship with her parents, it didn't really matter, but now, it was too difficult to continue hiding the fact that she was with Si Han. They would find out sooner or later. Rather than letting her parents have wild speculations about her in the future, it was better she eliminate the danger now. Thus, Yi Wanwan nodded and replied, Daddy, Mommy, it's true. Liang Wanjun was overjoyed at the unexpected news. Where's he from? How old is he? What does he do? Is he reliable? Yi Wanwan replied helplessly, Cough, Mom, it's not a good time for me to go into the details today. Next time, I'll explain everything and bring him home to meet you. She considered this before and felt that it wasn't a solution in the long term. She had to think of a way to make Si Han less repulsive towards the people around her. Suddenly, Yi Wanwan heard a noise coming from her phone, and only then did she realize that forgot to switch it off, and Si Han hadn't hung up as well. Yi Wanwan hung up the phone suspiciously. What was that noise? Did I say anything wrong just now? After hearing what their daughter said, Liang Wanjun and Yi Xiaoting finally eased up and nodded. Yi Wanwan stood in front of her parents and gave a gentle and lovable smile. Daddy, Mommy, let's go home. Sure. Right here, right now. The husband and wife were finally sure that their willful and impetuous daughter had really changed. Before leaving, the whole family bid farewell to the old man. Yi Xiaoting and Liang Wanjun were worried that the old man would scold Yi Wanwan and was about to speak up on her behalf. However, before the old man could make things difficult for them, Yi Wanwan hung her head low and apologized of her own accord. Grandpa, I'm sorry, Wanwan was too rash today. But if this continues to drag on, it's a pain for me, for Gu Yuze and for Cousin Yi. It'd be better to take swift and ruthless action now and settle things once and for all. In the past, I was too possessive, but I've straightened out my thinking and decided that I want to live my life to the fullest. Yi Wanwan looked like she was suffering and enduring pain as she spoke. It was as if she had concealed innumerable grievances and sorrows. The old man had a bellyful of fury initially, but after seeing the girl hanging her head low and biting her lips, he couldn't be angry at her anymore. What should he be mad about? Mad that she called off the engagement without permission? But it was true that her engagement with that Gu chap had ceased to exist except in name long ago. Things were exactly as she said. There were no benefits for the three of them if they dragged things on. As for telling everyone that she called off the engagement because she was in love with someone else, bearing the charge of betraying her fiancé, that was totally groundless. Ultimately, Guyuze already acted like a couple with Yi in public while he was still engaged, so he was really in no position to criticize Yi Wanwan for her behavior. So in the end, Yi Hongwei realized that he couldn't even speak one word of criticism towards her. On the contrary, seeing the way his granddaughter treated that chap from the Gu family different from how she used to, and seeing as she took the initiative to cut off all relations, he actually found that their Yi family had some character. All right, just this once. Go home. After thinking for a while, Yi Hongwei said just these 6 words. Yi Wanwan nodded obediently. Goodbye, Grandpa. Take care of your health. I'll visit you often. Usually, Yi Hongwei didn't allow their family into the old residence, but hearing what Yi Wanwan said, he didn't deny them entry and simply nodded in response. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Cough Master. Sorry. My foot's fault. Just now when he heard that Yi Wanwan wanted to bring his master back home to meet her parents, he got so unsettled that he accidentally stepped on the accelerator. Sui got into such a big fright that his soul flew out of him. He trembled as he picked up his master's phone that fell from his hands and handed it over. Then when he lifted his gaze, he saw an expression that had never appeared before on his master's face. It was like he had confronted a formidable enemy and met a thorny problem. But what's for sure was that it didn't have any signs of anger. Master couldn't be nervous because he'll be meeting his in-laws, could he? Sui quickly brushed away the nonsensical thoughts in his head. Cough Master, should we wait for Miss Wanwan? Return to Jean Garden. Got it. The banquet came to an end as the guests left one after another. With forced smiles, Yi and Gu Yuze stood by the door to send the guests off. In her previous life, after these two announced their engagement, they received blessings from all the guests, but at this moment, all they got were the weird looks from the guests. Yuanwan walked out of the old residence and caught sight of a black car driving away slowly a short distance away. She couldn't help but feel terrified. That car, why does it look so familiar? Wanwan, what's wrong? Liang Wanjun asked. Mommy, I'm fine. Yuanwan shook her head, then held her mother's hand and said, Daddy, Mommy, let's go home. I've already got someone to move your luggage into the villa. When Liang Wanjun heard that, she turned to Yuanwan, worried. Wanwan, did you really get the house back? Yi Xiaoting also spoke solemnly. As far as I know, after that house was auctioned off, Chu Hongguang bought it. Yi Wanwan nodded. That's right. I got it back from Chu Hongguang's hands. Yi Xiaoting was surprised. What? That old fox, how did you? Yi Wanwan knew what her parents were worried about and gave them both an assuring look. Daddy, Mommy, you don't have to worry. I definitely got the house back through proper means. I'll tell you the details later. Liang Wanjun and Yi Xiaoting looked at their daughter's calm and composed manner and felt at ease as they nodded. Yi Mufan stood by the side. Strangely, he started to recall what Yuanwan said to him over the phone that day. I'll be the one taking care of and protecting Mom and Dad next time. I'll get revenge for the Yi family. At that time, he thought she was just indulging in fantasy and was too naive, or it was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. He didn't expect that in just a short few months, she accomplished her lofty goals to this extent. Liang Wanjun seemed to have thought of something as she hesitated before speaking. Wanwan, does your boyfriend know about our family's situation? Yi Wanwan nodded, and he does, and he doesn't mind. Liang Wanjun and Yi Xiaoting were naturally worried that their family status would affect their daughter's happiness. In order to make her parents feel reassured, Yuanwan pondered to herself for a moment, then replied firmly, Daddy, Mommy, don't worry. He's not someone from our circle. He's just a normal guy, ordinary working adult, very honest and considerate, and isn't too good-looking. Yuanwan felt that this line might have used up an entire lifetime's worth of power. Yi Xiaoting was indeed reassured after hearing that and was very pleased. All right, normal is good. He doesn't need to be rich or noble. Even if he looks average, it's fine. As long as he treats you well, that's good enough. Liang Wanjun also expressed her satisfaction. Men turn bad easily when they're wealthy, and it's unsafe if they're too good-looking. Mommy's also worried that you wouldn't be able to manage a guy like that. So, it's better this way. Yi Wanwan, cough in. The family was about to leave when Liang Jiahao's voice came from behind. Jia. Liang Wanjun paused and looked at Liang Jiahao without any emotion in her eyes. The amount she doted on her little brother before was proportionate to how disappointed she was in him now. The disappointment accumulated all these years, and now there was no sadness left, only numbness. Jia, are you already moving out? Liang Jiahao asked. Liang Wanjun glanced at her daughter and said resolutely, We've troubled you for a long time. Jia, Liang Jiahao sighed. I know that you and brother-in-law helped us a lot. I'm sorry, I'm really in a tough spot. About the company, will brother-in-law still be working? Yuanwan stood by the side and sneered. After so much talking, all he wants to know is whether Dad will be working at the company still? Liang Jiahao treated her dad as if he had the capabilities of many people and even used him like a slave. Obviously, he couldn't bear to part with such cost-effective labor. This uncle of hers had no management skills at all. With her father around to help him, he was naturally very relaxed. But this family pretended to be mistreated after being granted a favor. Before her father could reply, Yuanwan said, like Cousin Shirhan said, how can us kids tire out our parents? With that said, they had nothing to do with Liang Jiahao's family anymore. It was fine if they took care of each other as relatives, but this family of ingrates was worse than a bunch of strangers. Behind him, Fang Xiumin got anxious when she heard that. How could you do that? The company has many projects only halfway done. It's too irresponsible of him to just leave like that. Yuanwan laughed. Oh, irresponsible? Then why doesn't my father become the boss and have complete responsibility? I suddenly remembered that my dad put in an investment to start this company before too, right? You're dreaming. Feng Xiumin's expression changed immediately. Unlike how Auntie dreams, Yuan said, chuckling. She then said in a reassuring tone, Auntie, don't be nervous. Whether it's the house or the company, we're not interested in them at all. After all, we don't have a habit of picking up bones we throw out. This tone of voice was obviously mocking them as a family that was worse than pigs and dogs. Yuan couldn't be bothered to continue bickering with this family, so she dragged her parents out and left. Feng Xiumin was so mad that she yelled furiously at Liang Jiahao. You're just standing there letting that stupid girl bully me like that, not saying a single word to defend me. Seeing Liang Jiahao still kept his silence, Feng Xiumin gave him a shove. Say something. Yi Xiaoting's gone now, so who's going to manage all the things in the company? Liang Shihan stared at Yuan's retreating figure with jealousy. Mommy, let them leave. They're just a bunch of stray dogs. What's there to be mad about? Can't the company survive without him? Huh? Feng Xiumin took a deep breath. Shihan's right. They're just a bunch of stray dogs. What's there to be mad about? In the future, your Auntie Mei Xian and Yi Jie will help us. Who wants this lousy house and lousy company? Liang Shihan nodded continuously. Right now, half of the showbiz belongs to Uncle Z Group, and Yi Jie is the director of talent recruitment at Emperor Sky, while brother-in-law's the chairman of Emperor Sky. That family can't even find a job, yet they still dare to think about making a comeback. They're truly indulging in fantasies. Golden Seas. I have some business to attend to, so I'll get going first. They were already at the door, but Yi Mu Fan didn't enter. Mu Fan. It's so late. Where are you heading to? Liang Wanjun watched helplessly as her son left. Yi Xiaoting's face darkened, and there was tiredness in his eyes. Forget it. Don't bother with him. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Daddy, Mommy, don't worry. I'll try to persuade Gigi. Yuan said reassuringly as an iciness flashed across her eyes. With her older brother acting like that, if she wanted him to come to his senses, she had to do something drastic. She'd better come up with a good plan. Wan, you're a good girl. Seeing their daughter being so sensible, Liang Wanjun and Yi Xiaoting were relieved. The villa had a specialized housekeeper who got someone to maintain the upkeep of the villa every month. So although it had been a long time since somebody lived in it, it was still very clean and tidy. The expensive furnishings in the house had been auctioned off, but the other items were still there. Yuan looked at this utterly familiar place and was misty-eyed. I'm finally home. Actually, they only lived in this little house before because it was located in a rare district, built on a very valuable piece of land, and her mother liked the surrounding neighborhood, so they hadn't moved after so many years. The house wasn't big, and since it was built many years ago, it was somewhat old. When she earned enough money in the future, she'd get them a better place. Yuan was afraid her parents would worry, so she didn't dare tell them about the things she did with Chu Hongguang. She only mentioned that she helped a friend when he was at his lowest, and lent him some cash, so the house was gifted to her by her friend in order to repay her. She mentioned that she was also helping that friend in his studio, and in turning there now. The family of three hadn't seen each other in a long time, so they chatted on and on. Other than asking about her, Liang Wanjun and Yi Xiaoting also asked many questions about that ordinary and honest boyfriend. Wan, that person you like. Is he this Yi Bai friend you're talking about? Liang Wanjun probed. Cough. No, not that friend. Mommy, I know you and Daddy are worried that I'll take the same disastrous road and get tricked again. But don't worry, basically. He's nothing like Guyu Zadis regarding his morals for profits or tricking me for money and power. My boyfriend will do nothing of that sort to me. Yuan said all this without a change in her expression. That's Si Han I'm talking about. He, himself, is the embodiment of money and power. So what amount of money and power can make him disregard his moral principles for profits? Wait till our relationship matures a little more, and I'll definitely bring him to meet the both of you. Wait till I think of a way to make the great devil look more ordinary. At night, Yuan chatted with her parents for a very long time, but since she had to work the next day, She eventually bid farewell to her parents reluctantly and returned to the hostel. The night air was as cool as water. A crescent moon hung overhead in the empty sky. The taxi was halfway to the hostel when Yuan suddenly told the driver to stop. After paying the fare, she walked over to a food stall in the downtown area. Tonight at Grandpa's banquet, she had almost nothing to eat. She also didn't feel the hunger when she was chatting with her parents just now, but at this moment, her tummy was crazily protesting for food. Inside the food stall, although the decorations weren't high class, it was simple and the smells of the food attacked her senses from all around. Unlike luxurious restaurants, these kinds of places were usually where good, authentic food could be found. Alright, maybe it's just because I'm feeling a little stingy tonight. Yuan picked a secluded corner and sat down. Miss, what would you like? The boss was a middle-aged man and was startled when he got a closer look at the girl's appearance in the dark corner. He immediately put on a wide smile and brought the menu over. Let me see. Give me 1 sweet and sour pork ribs, 1 roasted pork, 1 steamed crucian carp, 20 mutton skewers, 10 pork skewers, 10 crispy bones. Sue, that's right. My master would never disregard his morals for profits. He'll disregard his morals for love. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yuan ordered quite a bit of food in one breath. She considered all this food a reward for herself. Furthermore, it wasn't very expensive to order so much at a place like this. The boss kept sizing Yuan up. Girls these days were usually on a diet, so he didn't expect to see someone act so unconventionally. Of course, as a boss, he really liked this kind of customer. All right, coming right up. The food stall was a little busy, so the boss didn't stay long and left immediately after taking Yuan's order. Yuan took out her phone and initially wanted to send a text to Yihan, but all of a sudden, a somewhat familiar voice came from behind her. Boss, get me 5 bowls of dumplings. Yuan looked to the side and saw a young man dressed in a tattered and old denim jacket walking briskly into the food stall. Nameless. Yeah? Yuan was surprised. At that moment, Yuan instantly turned her head, afraid that Nameless Nya would recognize her. She even felt slightly guilty. After all, she actually bought a precious treasure from him for just $100. What if this guy saw her and regretted selling it to her? Very soon, Nameless Nya found a round table and sat down, rushing the boss incessantly. Hurry up, boss. Minced meat for my dumplings, and remember to wrap big ones. Oh right. How much does a bowl of dumplings cost? After some time, Nameless Nya seemed to remember he had to pay for them. $10. The boss, who was cooking, responded. Oh. The young man thought deeply for a moment, and the corners of his mouth moved slightly as if he was making an important decision. I'll have 6 bowls. After some time, the boss presented 6 bowls of dumplings on his table. In just a few minutes, Nameless Nya managed to finish off all the dumplings. Bossa, I've ordered so many dumplings. Do you want to give me some roast pork ribs, roast fish, or something for free? Nameless Nya asked eagerly. Are you kidding me? The boss laughed. 6 bowls of dumplings cost $60. One of my roast meat already costs much more. Oh, Nameless Nya thought. That won't do then. You should give me another 2 bowls of dumplings. The boss gave Nameless Nya a sidelong glance. He probably couldn't be bothered to entertain him anymore. After Nameless Nya spoke, another person entered the stall. This guy had a stocky build, his body was covered in dust, he was wearing a green construction safety cap, and both his eyes were sky blue. You'd know with just one look that he was a foreigner. Captain, why didn't you tell me that you're eating shit? The foreigner wearing the construction cap said seriously as he sat down in front of Nameless Nya. Hearing that, Nameless Nya's face changed slightly. Boss, I'd like to eat shit. Give me some shit. The foreigner friend turned to the boss, speaking in his very out-of-practice Mandarin. Not far off, Yuan just started devouring her food, and after she heard the conversation, she spat out the rice in her mouth instantly. Are you insane? Coming to my stall to eat shit? Why don't you go to the toilet if you want to eat shit? The boss stared at the foreigner, completely speechless. No, boss. My friend's Mandarin isn't great. He said that he wants shit. Actually, he meant rice. Nameless Nya pulled the boss to one side, explaining softly, Boss, get me some shit. Not too expensive, but it has to taste great. The foreigner stroked his chin innocently. Sure, sure, sure. I'll get you some shit. The boss didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he turned and left. Yi Wanwan's sharp ears overheard the conversation between Nameless Nya and the boss, and she was speechless too. She reckoned that the foreigner had been fooled by Nameless Nya, who probably told him that the word shit meant rice. Such an annoying person actually exists? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After the boss left, Nameless Nya turned to the foreigner, looking pensive. How many bricks did you move today? The foreigner's firm muscles trembled slightly as he replied proudly, Not much, not much, just 5,000 pieces. Hearing that, Nameless Nya immediately got excited. Which means you earned quite a bit today, huh? I didn't do too bad today, Captain. The foreigner giggled and patted his own pocket. Immediately, Nameless Nya gained some confidence and he said, Boss, get me another 10 bowls of dumplings, 1 plate of red braised pork, 1 plate of braised fish and braised pork ribs. You want one? I thought I was a rice bucket myself, but this guy here is a dumpling bucket? While waiting, another 2 people walked into the stall. Captain, we're back. Oh, although the first guy in front was dressed in menswear, his face was even more bewitching than a lady's. If one didn't look closely, he really looked like an extremely charming woman. The other man had long black hair and was carrying a stretcher on his back. His entire body looked as if it was a beautiful 10,000-year-old glacier without a tinge of human emotion reflected in his eyes. Before Nameless Nya could open his mouth, the beautiful iceberg man already placed his stretcher on the ground, acting like there was nobody else present, and soon after that, he laid on it lazily. Get up. Seeing this, Nameless Nya pinched the space between his brows like he was having a headache. However, the beautiful iceberg man didn't move at all and seemed quite comfortable laying there. How lazy are you? Why don't you just die from laziness? Nameless Nya said with resentment towards the man for refusing to listen. Stand up right now. Nameless Nya shouted coldly. Seeing that Nameless Nya was angry, the beautiful iceberg man slowly sat up grudgingly, moving from a sleeping position to a sitting position. Your father wants you to stand up, not sit there paralyzed. Nameless Nya yelled, almost at his breaking point. Hearing that, the beautiful iceberg man kept silent for a long time, but nevertheless listened to Nameless Nya. He held his stretcher and stood up. Aya, Captain's so cool. You're so handsome even when you're mad. I haven't seen Captain for several days already and I really miss you. Oh. Did you miss me? The bewitching man next to the beautiful iceberg man nestled into Nameless Nya's embrace. Get lost, Nameless Nya said, irritated. Captain, you're so naughty. The boy sat upright obediently. He turned to the long-haired iceberg man and blinked. Hubby, you won't be jealous, right? However, the beautiful iceberg man only gave a sidelong glance at him and didn't bother responding. Seeing that the beautiful iceberg man was silent, the bewitching man looked hurt. Hubby, say something. Your expression's been so cold the whole day. It really hurts my heart. Hubby, say something. I really want to hear that voice of yours. That voice which makes people's hormones spike off the charts. Watching this scene, Yi Wanwan, who was sitting at a nearby corner, was so stunned that the braised meat from her mouth dropped out. What the hell? What a complicated relationship. This bewitching man was flirting with Nameless Nya, yet he called another man his hubby? Hubby, just say one word, all right? The bewitching man persisted. Then, the beautiful iceberg man finally opened his mouth as the boy wished. Scram. The eyes of the bewitching man were filled with resentment as he immediately glared at the beautiful iceberg man. Divorce. I can't go on like this. Immeasurable deity. Suddenly, a young Taoist devotee appeared at the stall. This Taoist devotee was dressed in a white Taoist robe. He held a long streamer and there was calmness in his eyes, giving off an immortal disposition that was free from vulgarity. Yi Wanwan was completely dumbfounded. This was too much for her eyes to take in. What was with the sudden appearance of a Taoist devotee? What kinds of people are these, huh? The Taoist devotee placed his long streamer down and looked at the bewitching man. Stupid gay guy. This poor Taoist has read your fortune. You will encounter a blood-filled disaster in the next few days. The bewitching man sneered. You really think you're a devotee, huh? Stupid medium. When the devotee heard that, his charming face changed and a dark, evil smile surfaced. You're courting death? Oh, try me. The man shot a flirtatious glance over. The luster in his eyes was as sharp as the tip of a knife, morphing him into a completely different person from before. Hua Hua, he destroyed an entire nation already. I think you'd better not try him. The foreigner reminded him with good intentions. Huh? Just him. The bewitching man who went by the name Hua Hua hugged his belly and roared out in laughter. He was about to say something when Nameless Nya rapped on the table with his fingers. Shut up, everyone, Nameless Nya said, annoyed. The moment Nameless Nya said that, the foreigner, bewitching man and the young Taoist devotee turned quiet instantly. Even the beautiful iceberg man looked at Nameless Nya seriously. Nameless Nya's eyes swept across all four of them before he cleared his throat and said coldly, Our team is called? God of Death in Dusk? The four of them yelled at the same time. Our slogan is? Nameless Nya continued. Nothing's nicer than dumplings. Nothing's more fun than sister-in-law. Captain eats dumplings. We play with sister-in-law. Captain, I don't want to play with sister-in-law. I want to play with you. The bewitching man suddenly moved closer to Nameless Nya. However, before the gay guy could approach him, he was frightened off by Nameless Nya's icy glare. Continue with the slogan. Nameless Nya dictated. Immediately, the four of them looked at each other and played a beat with their palms as they chanted, Captain of the God of Death, talented and suave, cool, 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 strong, 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 strong. Everyone's very honest. I feel relieved as your captain. Nameless Nya nodded, satisfied. Outside the stall, the boss seemed dumbfounded as he sized up the 5 people inside. And in the corner, the roast meat that Yuan picked up with her chopsticks fell onto the table once again with a plop. Multi-level marketing organizations these days were becoming more and more exotic. How could they even manage to shout such a shameful slogan? They're all such tools. Not long after, the boss brought their dishes out and left. After that, the little devotee carried over a carton of beers. The few people looked at the feast in front of their eyes and raised their chopsticks eagerly. Presumptuous. Put down the chopsticks. The rule in our team is that whoever's the most handsome shall eat first. The bewitching man suddenly bellowed. Hearing that, the little devotee and brick-moving foreigner sighed before withdrawing their chopsticks they'd extended. Nameless Nya crossed his legs and picked up a piece of braised pork unhurriedly, then put the entire piece into his mouth and spoke incoherently, Dumplings are still the best. Seeing that their captain started eating, the others swiftly picked up their chopsticks. Half an hour later, there was only half a carton of beer left. Nameless Nya gave a languid look and his gaze swept across his men. Any updates? Still don't have any definite news, the bewitching man said. Captain, we're still investigating and we'll need more time, the devotee said. The beautiful iceberg man shook his head, indicating that he didn't have any updates. What about you? Nameless Nya turned to the foreigner friend who moved bricks. The foreigner replied honestly after swallowing the roast meat. Captain, I've been moving bricks to make money the whole day. I didn't have time to investigate it all. A tinge of impatience appeared in Nameless Nya's brows. I'll give you guys another 3 months. You must find the person I'm looking for. Captain, don't worry. We'll definitely complete our mission. The other 4 people chorused. Yuan, who was still in the corner, clicked her tongue and thought in her heart. Who exactly is this group of people looking for? Could it be someone who owes them money? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After he had eaten and drunk to his heart's content, Nameless Nye stood up. Boss Bill. The boss immediately walked to them and said, "For 75. Hearing that, Nameless Nye nodded and looked at the four people. The four people also turned to look at Nameless Nye. "Where's the money? Pay up," Nameless Nye demanded. "Oh." The bewitching man pulled out a stack of notes from his pocket, mostly 50 cents and $1. After Nameless Nye counted carefully, it only totaled up to 20-something dollars. The devotee pulled out two brand-new $10 notes unwillingly. "What about you?" Nameless Nye looked at the beautiful iceberg man. "Captain, have you forgotten? My hubby and I are partners. My hubby pretends to be a dead man while I weep. This money is our shared income, oh." The bewitching man cast a flirtatious look at him. Yi Wanwan, who had been observing this interaction. Selling his body to bury his husband? This money-making scheme is amazing. Fuck. Nameless Nye slammed the table and pointed at the three of them. "The three of you are useless garbage. You guys barely even made $50 today altogether. Business isn't good these days. Only one person came to see his fortune today, and he even called me a fake and didn't pay up. I just happened to pick up $20 on the ground while walking." The handsome and nefarious-looking devotee sighed. "Don't give me excuses." Nameless Nye waved his hand and interrupted him, then pointed to the brick-moving foreigner and said, "Look at little sweetie Joro. He moved 5,000 bricks in one day and made so much money. Look at the rest of you. Acting like a corpse, acting like a psychic. You can't even earn $50. How embarrassing and shameless." Little sweetie Joro. Every time I hear this name, I get goosebumps. The handsome and nefarious-looking devotee discreetly turned to the brick-moving foreigner. "Captain, why are they all laughing at the name you gave me? What exactly does little sweetie Joro mean?" The brick-moving foreigner was unhappy. Cough, cough. Nameless Nye turned to the brick-moving foreigner and spoke with much sincerity. "Little sweetie Joro means very bold, powerful, and aggressive. They're laughing at you because they're not worthy enough to have this name." Hearing his explanation, the brick-moving foreigner nodded and said seriously, "Captain, I like this domineering name. Wait till I earn more money. I'll treat you to eat shit." Nameless Nye. "That's all right. Little sweetie. Joro?" Yi Wanwan's face was completely blank. "What kind of weird name is that? Are you guys done or not?" The boss standing by the side was getting impatient. "These lunatics don't have the money to pay up? Please take note of your tone and attitude while speaking to our captain." A cold glow flickered in the devotee's eyes. "Oh, coming here to dine and dash, yet you're still acting all high and mighty." A cleaver appeared in the boss' hand out of nowhere. "Boss, don't be rash." Nameless Nye waved and turned to the foreigner. "Little sweetie, take the money out." Hearing this, the foreigner nodded and took out a note from his pocket. "And? Take them all out." Nameless Nye laughed when he saw the $10 note in the foreigner's hand. "Captain, that's all. It's all here." The foreigner replied with extremely out-of-practice Mandarin. "That's all?" Nameless Nye was stunned. "Didn't you say you moved 5,000 bricks?" "Yes, it's all here. The boss said that moving 5,000 bricks would only earn me this much," the brick-moving foreigner said. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. You moved bricks for an entire day, and the boss only gave you $10? Nameless Nye tried to prevent blood from spewing out. "Move more bricks next time. Move 100,000 of them." "All right, Captain." The foreigner nodded continuously. "Captain, have you earned any money today?" the devotee asked curiously. "TSK, earned any money?" The corners of Nameless Nye's mouth moved upwards. He put his hand into his shirt and fished out a $100 bill proudly. Seeing the great $100 bill in Nameless Nye's hand, the four of them immediately lined up in a row and chanted, "Captain of the God of Death, talented and suave, cool, 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 strong, 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 strong. Captain's amazing. I want to give the captain a lovely kiss." The bewitching man grabbed hold of Nameless Nye. He was brushed away with one tight slap. Yi Wanwan looked at the $100 in Nameless Nye's hand. That can't be the $100 I used to buy the gift, can it? You're so mean, Captain. Captain's so naughty-o. You're so handsome even when you're mad. I love you to death, Captain. The bewitching man looked at him with even more adoration. Little sweetie, kick him out, Nameless Nye ordered. All right, Captain. The foreigner wiped his hands and threw the bewitching man out of the stall like he was carrying a little chicken. But in half a minute, the bewitching man charged back in again and pointed at the brick-moving foreigner. Smelly brick mover. If you put your dirty claws on my smooth skin again, I'll break your damn off. Hubby, he bullied me. Doesn't your heart ache at all? Am I still your beloved little sweetheart? The bewitching man grabbed a hold of the beautiful iceberg man's arm. At this moment, seeing this group of acting prodigies, the boss finally reached his limit. Pay up right now. All of you are insane. Huh? Boss, give us a break. How about a discount? Nameless Nye asked. Staring at the loose change in Nameless Nye's hand, there was only a total of $160. The boss sneered. How about I break your bones? Boss, how about this? Nameless Nye brought out a bone sculpture out of nowhere and cleared his throat, speaking very seriously. This is the alligator I hunted down in an extremely northern icy region. I used a lost skill to craft his skull. Usually, I sell it for 100,000, but I shall let you have it for cheap today. How about using this to pay for the meal? Boss, you've made a gain. The bewitching man hurriedly chimed in. Boss, quickly take it. If you feel bad, just give our captain a few bowls of dumplings. The foreigner nodded. Right now, the boss head was filled with black lines. Never mind about dining and dashing. Now they're treating me like a fool. Fuck your grandmother. The boss raised his cleaver and looked as if he wanted to chop them up. In the corner, after Yi Wanwan watched half a day of drama, she couldn't sit there quietly any longer. She coughed lightly and walked over. Then she took out $300 and placed it next to Nameless Nye. I'm lending this to you. Get lost quickly. Don't hurt my eyes anymore. Miss Famous Yi, what a coincidence. Nameless Nye was slightly taken aback. He tightly grabbed the $300 that Yi Wanwan placed on the table. At that moment, the man dressed as a devotee stared at Yi Wanwan and his eyes glistened. Captain, where did you meet this little beauty? She's a customer at the booth. Her name's Famous Yi. We have an affinity, let alone this name of hers. Nameless Nye rubbed his chin. Yi Wanwan was speechless. I simply made up that name, and he took it for real. Captain, you're a legend in this world. Yet today, you had to rely on a girl to save you. The nefarious-looking devotee lamented bitterly. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Stop talking nonsense. Nameless Nye was slightly annoyed. Whoever earns the least this month will have to get lost to Africa to carry out a task for me. No, I just want to eat my life away and wait for death. The devotee shook his head vehemently, terrified. There were only a few days left until the end of the month and he'd earn the least for sure. Tsk, the most powerful Taoist devotee in the East with a kidney defect who could make one turn pale just by the mention of his name, now actually wants to eat his life away and wait for death. It's godly Taoist devotee. The devotee's face was rigid as he corrected Nameless Nye. Seems like kidney defect suits you better. The bewitching man ridiculed. Stupid pervert. I once destroyed an entire nation single-handedly. Are you sure you want to talk to me in this way? A cold light flashed in the nefarious-looking devotee's eyes. That's right. You scared me. It was just a little aboriginal country, and there were only a few of them. What fierce abilities you have! The bewitching man burst out in laughter. The breaths of the nefarious-looking devotee quickened as he sneered. No matter how many of them were there, it was still an independent country. Yi Wanwan swallowed her spit and stared at those people, speechless. She even started getting goosebumps. I've met people who love to brag, but not to this extent. What legend in this world? What most powerful Taoist devotee in the East? What destroyed an entire nation single-handedly? Why don't you guys ascend to heaven already, huh? Even an MLM organization wouldn't dare to brag like that, right? A mental institute would suit them better. After drinking a few bottles of beer, you guys brag till you don't even know your names anymore, huh? You can't even pay a few $100s, yet you're still bragging like this? The boss of the food stall seemed like he couldn't tolerate this anymore as he waved his cleaver and sneered. Boss, don't be rash. Nameless Nya handed the money over to the boss. After seeing the money, the boss' countenance turned considerably warmer. Hold on. I gave you $10 more. Nameless Nya hurriedly ran forward and snatched a $10 bill back from the boss' hand. Damn your mother. After so many years of operating this stall, I've met all kinds of people, but for people like you guys, I have to hand it to you. The boss gave a thumbs up to Nameless Nya and the others. After paying up, Nameless Nya turned to Yi Wanwan gratefully. Thank you so much for your help just now, Miss Famous Yi. Yi Wanwan rubbed her nose. Oh, it's nothing. Just consider it my way of saying thanks for that present. After all, I did make a gain from it. Though it's a little presumptuous of me, I'm really curious. Are you guys from an MLM organization? Yi Wanwan couldn't help asking. That bewitching man became furious when he heard her. What audacity! Who are you calling an MLM organization? We are. At that moment, the devotee squeezed him on the butt and walked to Yi Wanwan. Far from it. We're a regular team. Miss, are you interested in joining us? We're lacking a female on our team, especially a wonderful and talented one like you. Yi Wanwan, heh, no, thank you. I don't know anything. I'm just a weak chicken who doesn't even have the strength to fight another chicken. I'm undeserving of being on this completely normal team. The devotee kept trying to persuade her. Beauty, you don't have to do anything. You can be the group's pet. We'll treat you so well. In order to express my sincerity, I can read your fortune for free. I see that there are red clouds around your face, rays of light emitting from your eyes. It's a lucky sign. You might have luck in your love life in the future. Yi Wanwan, my ass. He's definitely a king among all swindlers. What lucky sign? Having luck in my love life is a great calamity to me, all right? Yi Wanwan didn't even turn around and walked away instantly. Dazzling media, Luo Qian attracted everyone's attention the minute he stepped into the company. Those newcomers and interns who wouldn't even give one look to Luo Qian before were now all going up to him to greet him. Good morning, Luo Qianji. Morning, Senior Luo Qian. Congratulations, Senior. I saw the video posted on your Weibo. It's too cool. I think the role of Luo Qian this time will definitely be yours, Senior Luo Qian. Although it had already been a few days, Luo Qian was still not used to his current status and was a little uncomfortable with everyone's compliments. He pursed his lips and briskly walked straight towards the office upstairs without paying his fans any attention. In the corner at the other side, Lin Hao stared in the direction of Luo Qian and his eyes filled with gloominess. A few small-time artistes who were standing by Lin Hao's side clicked their tongues and gathered together, chatting softly. Truly, things of the world are hard to predict. Who would have guessed that the 3-year has-been Luo Qian would explode in popularity so fast? I really couldn't tell that the new manager had such skills. Not only did he have a unique taste in choosing his artiste, he's also very accurate in predicting the market. I wonder if he still wants any more newcomers. There was even a newcomer who wanted to work under Yi Bai. Lin Hao folded his arms and sneered. TSK, the cause of this incident was Lin Zong's passing. Song Jin Lin only wanted to fulfill Lin Zong's final wish of filming the sequel. What has that got to do with predicting the market? He's just a lucky bastard. One of the newcomers mumbled meekly, but the main selling point was that video. It's really very creative and immediately put Luo Qian out there. The newcomer was afraid of infuriating Lin Hao, so he didn't dare speak too loudly. In showbiz, having luck was also a strength. Lin Hao carried a look of disdain. You guys are so naive. Do you know how many people are fighting for this role? You think just him, a nobody, could really get the part simply because of a popular Weibo post? Considering what Lin Hao said, a few of them agreed that the competition for the casting of Terrifying Dragon 2 was intense. Even though Luo Chun had the most votes now, his competitors had great influence as well. There were even some who were willing to bring in their own investments, so it was really hard to say who would get the part. Yi Wanwan's office. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door. Please come in. Yi Wanwan just sent a text to Yi Han to ask him out for a candlelit dinner tonight when she heard knocking on her door. Yi Ji, sit. Yi Wanwan indicated for Luo Chun to take a seat, then raised her head and asked, "How's training coming along?" "It's all right," Luo Chun responded. At the same time, a tinge of confusion flashed in his eyes. Initially, he was questioning why his manager wanted him to learn martial arts, which he found completely useless. In order to attend training, he risked everything and quit his odd jobs, living every day in worry and self-doubt. But he finally understood there was a reason behind Yi Bai's actions. There were quite a number of acrobatic fight scenes in Terrifying Dragon, and even more in Terrifying Dragon 2. If he was skilled in martial arts, it'd be a great advantage for him. With Luo Chin's humble character, when he said his training was all right, it probably meant he had a mark of 90 or higher. Yi Wanwan nodded in satisfaction, then casually said, "Take your shirt off, let me see." The moment the words of the young man fell, Luo Chin's face instantly turned ghastly pale. He raised his head suddenly like he heard something horrific. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan probably realized that what she just said seemed to create a misunderstanding, and the corners of her mouth twitched. "I'm just asking you to take your shirt off. You don't have to look like you lost your head, all right? Jia, watching you stripping is more risky. Even my little heart is trembling in fear." She knew that because of what happened before, Luo Chun had his guard up and probably didn't fully trust her yet. But if he continued to be like this, it'd be very hard for her to continue working with him. Between an artiste and a manager, the most important thing was trust. Luo Chun seemed to recall something as he bit his lip hard and his face turned paler. His gaze froze at the man seated in front of the desk. He noticed that although Yi Bai asked him to take off his shirt, his expression was pure and honest. There weren't any dirty intentions in his eyes, and his look was completely different from the longing and lustful way Zhou Wenbin looked at him. Yi Wanwan knew trust couldn't be established overnight. Furthermore, what happened to Luo Chen before caused a severe psychological blow. Seeing Luo Chen's pale face, she decided not to force him. "Forget it. You don't." Alas, just as she was ready to tell him not to bother, Luo Chen suddenly stood up. His fingers grabbed the corners of his shirt, then he turned over the hem and removed the old white t-shirt. Yi Wanwan was slightly startled. She hadn't expected that with the degree of repulsiveness and disgust Luo Chen had for men, he could actually manage to do this. After a moment of shock, Yi Wanwan sized Luo Chen's body up. You couldn't tell usually when he wore a shirt, but now that he took it off, Yi Wanwan saw that Luo Chen was so skinny that even his ribcage could be seen. His skin was also deathly pale, like it hadn't been exposed to the sun in ages. And this was the result of him undergoing training with a martial arts trainer for half a month. It was much worse than she imagined. Yi Wanwan pinched her brows as her head started to hurt. Although it was said that one looked 5 kilograms fatter on screen, it wasn't good to be too skinny either, and Luo Chen was definitely overly skinny. If he ever needs to take some revealing shots, his figure will be really hard to look at. She already read the script, and unlike the Luo Chen in Terrifying Dragon 1, who was innocent and naive, who could even be a little delicate and beautiful, the Luo Chen in Terrifying Dragon 2 underwent a great change in both his age and temperament. He couldn't continue to act like a youngster. Furthermore, there were quite a few scenes where he needed to show his body. He can't just go and find a body double, right? With director Song Jin Lin's harsh standards, he would never allow it. Yi Wanwan jotted down something in her notebook, then said coldly, "This won't do. You're too thin. Gain more weight first, then work on building muscle. I'll make you a plan, so follow it accordingly." Also, I arranged your training schedule along with the nutritionist. I also applied for a dormitory for you for convenience's sake. We'll be living in the same building. Here's the key. You may move in tonight. I already sent the video I shot of you to the crew for Terrifying Dragon 2, and just received an email from the crew that you already passed the first interview. Go back and prepare. You'll audition next month. I live just above you, so you can come see me anytime if there's anything you need. Luo Chen listened blankly to Yi by talking all about his future arrangements in one breath and accepted the key with the words Grandview Park engraved on it. He was in shock for a long time before he regained his senses. He clenched his fists and nodded in silence, and, liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Managers had flexible working hours and didn't have to be in the office the entire day. After Yuan arranged Luo Chen's training schedule, set him up with a fitness trainer and nutritionist, and put up a crew recruitment ad, she took a taxi to C Corporation. The little secretary escorted her directly to the chairman's office. Probably sensing that this person who had a mysterious relationship with the chairman seemed to have something on his mind today, the little secretary tried probing. Mr. Yi, you seem troubled today. Yuan pinched her brows and didn't deny it. Yes, very troubled. The little secretary blinked. What's wrong? Did something happen? Could it be that the chairman threw a tantrum again? The little secretary only heard a resentful sigh from the stunning young man next to her. Your boss looks too charming. Little secretary. Huh? Why does this oddly sound like someone who's troubled because his girlfriend's too beautiful? In the chairman's office, when Yuan entered, Ce Han still had some business to deal with and was in the middle of a video call with someone on the computer. Yuan walked to the sofa and sat down. While waiting, she propped her chin on her hand and stared at the man sitting at the desk, speaking fluent German into his Bluetooth headset. Behind the man was a large window. The burning rays of sun in the horizon formed a distinct contrast with the man's frozen expression, creating an extremely beautiful picture. Not to mention the man's dark brows, black, deep, and serene eyes, thin lips, and immaculate features. He merely sat there, yet his face was icy without a trace of a human's warmth. Just one look gave her the sense that nothing compared to this lovely sight, even if she'd experienced a lot in life. Yuan retracted her gaze with much difficulty, nearly collapsing and burying her cheek in the palm of her hands. It's a sin. Breathtaking. He's way too breathtaking. How can I bring him home if he's this charming? If my parents see that he's so charming, won't they be worried sick? Truly, the evil we bring on ourselves is the hardest to bear. In the end, Yuan didn't choose a candlelit dinner at a high-end restaurant. Instead, she settled for a table at a bar. It was a place that was incompatible with Ce Han's personality, but in such a noisy environment, Ce Han's presence was like a quiet, fictitious land of peace and happiness, refreshing the mind. Yuan cupped her chin in her hand and stared at the beauty sitting opposite, sighing and fretting. She noticed Ce Han placing the wineglass in his hand down slowly. He lifted his head as his body leaned against the sofa and his breathtaking gaze landed on her face. His thin lips moved lightly and said, "Are you done looking?" Cough, 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 cough. Yuan was stunned for a moment before she broke out in a coughing frenzy. Then she realized that her gaze wasn't the least bit shameless, so she said awkwardly, you're too good looking, that's why I was staring. Yuan finally stabilized her mental state and was prepared to talk business. Baby, did you hear what I said last night at my grandpa's birthday banquet? The one where I told Gu Yuze about calling off the engagement. Ce Han. Judging by Ce Han's expression, he was probably in quite a good mood. Yuan's eyes lit up instantly and she tried asking, can I make a little request for my good behavior? Ce Han took a sip of his wine and gave a sidelong glance at her. What is it? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yuan mulled over the issue for a long time before finally opening up. Cough, it's like this. Because of that scumbag Gu Yuze before, my relationship with my parents became estranged. This time, After returning to the Yi house, I already made things clear with my parents to make sure that they have peace of mind and believe that I've really thought things through carefully. I told them about us. With that said, Yuanwan paused and observed Si Han's expression while she continued. Plus, we've been living together for more than 2 years already, so would you like to come back with me to meet my parents? Her worst fear was that someday, her parents would accidentally find out about her and Si Han. Considering Si Han's attitude toward her parents, or if her parents found out that she was forced into this relationship, she didn't dare to imagine the consequences. So she had to find a solution that satisfied both parties before things got worse. If Si Han was agreeable and willing to cooperate, that would be best. The moment Yuanwan said that, she inexplicably felt the surrounding noise completely filter out from her ears. All her attention was on his reaction. His fingers that were on the glass paused. The lighting in the bar was too dim. She couldn't really see Si Han's expression clearly. Time went by, second by second. You're not okay with it? Seeing no reaction from him, Yuanwan lowered her gaze, looking desolate. Si Han, am I just a toy to you? You lock me up when you're unhappy. You let me out to fly a few rounds when you're happy. I know you don't really like me having close relationships with others, even my parents. But with this attitude of yours, my parents might think that I've been abducted by bad guys, or even worse, they might think that I've been imprisoned and kept as a mistress. Si Han's face darkened as he looked at her, airing more and more grievances like she was about to cry. They're my parents and also your future in-laws. Were you just fooling around with me and not planning to get married this whole time? After Si Han heard the word married, his icy expression changed slightly. Then he finally said, okay. The moment Si Han said that, Yi Wanwan's head became like a sunflower finally seeing the sun. She looked up immediately and exclaimed, Really? Really? When you meet them, can you change your appearance to make yourself look uglier? No. No. To look more able, virtuous, and kind. No, what I meant was to look safer. Si Han. Si Han's expression that just warmed up a little instantly became like whistling northern winds. His voice also froze as he spoke, enunciating each word carefully. Am I too shameful to bring home? Yuanwan shook her head anxiously like a rattle. How could that be? It's just that, ever since Guyuze, my parents were very worried that I would be cheated on again. They're afraid I wouldn't be able to control someone who's too handsome and rich, afraid that he might forsake me or cheat on me, etc. Furthermore, I actually found someone who's extremely wealthy and could smash the vault of heaven. If I showed you to them like this, they'd probably be so worried that they couldn't sleep soundly. So while I have the ability to put their hearts at ease, I can't reveal your identity to them. So, I have to trouble you a little, La. Si Han seemed amused as he looked at her. He took things easy. How safe do you want? Yuanwan took out her phone and showed him an image. Something like this is fine. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yuanwan spoke as she sent the photo directly to Si Han. In the photo was a comedian wearing a very outdated red checkered shirt from the 80s, straight green pants, and a pair of black thick-rimmed glasses. He also had very tan skin, a pair of buck teeth, and was bald. His appearance was extremely hard to explain with a few words. Yuanwan asked excitedly, What do you think? It's very safe, huh? It's more than safe. Nobody would want him even if you delivered him to a girl's doorstep. It's perfect. Furthermore, nobody will be able to recognize who he is. The expression Si Han had after looking at the photograph. Yuanwan's conscience was probably triggered as she felt that transforming the stunning Si Han into this person was quite a feat. So she compromised and said, Cough, you can have some hair. If you find the red checkered top too garish, I can let you change it for a green one. I can also allow you to remove the glasses. No. Your eyes are too alluring, can't do without the glasses. Seeing that Si Han's face was turning uglier, Yuanwan swallowed and said earnestly, Baby, I really don't want this either, but this face of yours looks. Si Han's face was frosty. Like I would cheat on you? Yuanwan hurriedly said, How could that be? Baby, I know how you feel about me. You didn't even mind when I looked so atrocious before. I'm just scared that my parents would be worried and say. Yi Wanwan's lips were almost torn apart from all her persuading, but negotiations still broke down. Grandview Park. After they returned to the apartment, Yi Wanwan was still unwilling to give up and gave one final attempt. Sweetheart, think of it this way. If you're very ugly yet you have a beauty by your side, people will definitely think you're a tycoon. Wouldn't that feeling be amazing? Wait, this is wrong. You're a tycoon in the first place? Yi Wanwan was in despair. After accompanying Yi Wanwan to her doorstep, Si Han didn't have any intention to enter, so he turned and left immediately. Yi Wanwan panicked and blocked Si Han's path abruptly, pushing him into her apartment. Why are you being so unreasonable? I dressed up horrendously for you so many times, but you can't even do it for me once? Si Han was pushed to the edge of the sofa. His eyes narrowed and he was about to make a move, but in the next second, he was suddenly blocked by Yi Wanwan, resulting in her acting like an evil tyrant, pushing a young lady around. What if I said no? Si Han asked faintly, his terrifying eyes tinted with frost. Yi Wanwan spent a second being charmed by this pair of beautiful eyes, but was even more determined to not allow him to meet her parents with his real face. Thus, she pushed him directly onto the sofa and pressed against his body with one knee. Today, you have to yield no matter what. Even if you don't want to yield, you still have to yield. The moment Yi Wanwan said that, there was a clang. Following that was a pop. Two peculiar sounds came from behind her in succession. A bad premonition suddenly appeared in Yi Wanwan's mind as her back stiffened and she turned around. Then she saw Han Xianyu, who was in his pajamas and slippers, standing at the entrance. He was flabbergasted with a fallen box of canned beers by his side. The thing that made Yi Wanwan give up all hope was that the frail teenager next to Han Xianyu was actually Luo Chun. The poor child was completely dumbfounded. His script was scattered all over the floor. Fuck. What just happened? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. What's the situation here? After Yi Wanwan saw the two people at the door, she looked like she'd been struck by lightning 5 times. Han Xianyu's dashing face was mixed like a myriad of colors on a palette, while Luo Chen's pale little face was like a little white flower that had just been blown away by harsh winds. The 3 pairs of eyes met each other as they gazed at one another in dismay. There was a dead silence in the air. You guys, listen to me. This is definitely a misunderstanding. When Han Xianyu heard that, he stared at her leg. Yi Wanwan looked down and quickly put down the knee that was atop Si Han. Anyway, things aren't what you think. Han Xianyu then stared at her hand. Yi Wanwan quickly released the hand that was grabbing onto Si Han's collar, like she touched a hot potato. Luo Chun, your senior Xian, you can be my witness. Yi Wanwan hinted at Han Xianyu to quickly help her convince him, considering how frightened that kid was. Han Xianyu stared at the man who had been the victim with his shirt a mess. He rubbed his nose and said, I, myself, am quite startled too. Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan was so mad that she glared at a certain someone on the sofa. From Si Han's angle, he had definitely seen the people at the entrance, yet he didn't give her the heads up. She had just finally managed to earn a little trust from Luo Chun, but now, everything was back to square one. Si Han sat up leisurely and straightened his lapel and tie. As the victim who had just been pounced upon by a guy, he was the calmest one in the room. Things with Han Xianyu were still fine. It was no big deal even if he thought she, as he liked men, but Luo Chun was different. If Luo Chun thought she was gay, he'd no longer look at her straight anymore. Thus, Yi Wanwan poured all her attention on Luo Chun as she bent down and picked up the script scattered all over the floor before passing it to him. The moment she extended her arm, little sheep Luo cowered a little. Yi Wanwan shed tears in her heart. She forced herself to explain in a calm and collected manner, Luo Chun, let me introduce my friend to you. His surname's Si. Just now, I was messing around with him because I had something I needed his help with, and he wouldn't help me. Cough, it didn't scare you, did it? Luo Chen remained in a daze and stood there, his expression distracted and lifeless. All right, she already knew his answer. There was no other way. All Yi Wanwan could do was casually change the topic. Were the two of you looking for me? Han Xianyu coughed lightly. I met him on the way out and realized he was looking for you, so I brought him here. At that moment, Luo Chen stammered. Yiji, nothing much. I just wanted to talk to you about the script. Since you have a guest here, then, another day perhaps? Luo Chen finished speaking, so he eagerly turned around and ran away. When he ran out, he accidentally bumped headfirst into the door with a loud bang. Yi Wanwan looked at the shaking door and covered her face in silence. Oh God, why must I be training a little sheep? Everything's been ruined just like that. Now I have to redo. Han Xianyu coughed lightly and secretly peeped at the indifferent man adjusting his lapel, then turned to Yi Wanwan and said in a low voice, Cough, you went too far this time. Even I was so startled that I almost misunderstood. Not to mention that little kid. Yi Wanwan's face darkened. Don't mention it. I just wanted to ask if there was any way I could fix this. Han Xianyu rubbed his nose. I think it's really hard. Unless what? Yi Wanwan immediately asked. Han Xianyu spoke in a joking manner and waved his hand. Unless you're a girl, Yi Wanwan. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Unless I'm a girl? Damn it, I am a girl. I'm a girl who likes guys, alright? But the problem is that if other people find out I'm a girl, how would I deal with my broken agreement with Si Han? Compared to the little sheep Luo Chun, it was obvious that the great devil was a more thorny problem. So my identity as a woman must never be revealed. She could only think of another way to explain things to Luo Chun. Although Han Xianyu wanted to help, his hands were tied, so he left after picking up his beer. Before he left, he even helped them close the door thoughtfully. Inside the apartment, Yi Wanwan shot a look of resentment at Si Han. Are you happy now? I already paid such a heavy price. Si Han's slender and long body sat on the sofa. His deep and unpenetrable eyes gazed at her. You think I really mind being ugly? Being stared at by those eyes, Yi Wanwan subconsciously asked. Then, what else is it? Si Han didn't say a word, but the way he looked at her made her feel a sense of coldness and desolation, like her surroundings were barren. This cold and distant man who seemed to have no human emotions was giving her a sense of loneliness and solitude. Yi Wanwan looked at the silhouette of the lonely man and her heart ached slightly. All right, she had to admit, the reason why she wanted him to meet her parents wasn't because their relationship was maturing, but it was to mellow out his attitude towards her parents. She was afraid that he might do something that would harm her parents. She knew that ever since being reborn, she hadn't had a sense of security and had never genuinely opened herself to others. However, with such an unequal relationship, how could she have no reservations? Even after she was just reborn, she considered just enduring things till Si Han died. Then she would be freed and liberated. She remembered that Si Han's health had never been good. He already started to have all sorts of complications around this period of time, and during the year when she and Si Han got a divorce, it was as if the oil in Si Han's lamp dried up, leaving not much time for him to live. She clearly remembered that when Si Han was signing the divorce papers, he couldn't even hold the pen properly. After she left Si Han, she heard about his critical condition in newspapers and gossip. Although Si Han already had a bundle of health issues, she couldn't deny that her meddling accelerated his death. In her previous life, because of her, he treated his family as his enemy and had to deal with all kinds of trouble both domestically and externally, including assassination attempts. Due to overexertion, his already weak body deteriorated even more rapidly. Si Han's feelings towards her were so extreme that she couldn't take it, so she always thought about running away. But what was undeniable was that no matter in this life or the past, No matter how terrifying this man looked on the surface, he never hurt her or the people around her from beginning to end. Furthermore, after she was reborn, she discovered more and more sides to Si Han that she hadn't seen before. She just wanted to have freedom and wanted to preserve her life. But why was it that every time she thought about his deteriorating health, thought of his illness, thought about how in a few years' time, Si Han might be terminally ill, her heart felt as if a huge, sharp claw was tearing it apart? Actually, Si Han knew very well himself. He knew very well that she'd been deliberately putting on an act. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. That's right. Given how shrewd he was, how could he not see right through her thoughts? At first, she thought Si Han was just treating her like a pet he cared a lot for. She assumed he didn't really mind whether she was loyal to him and only needed her to be well-behaved and obedient. And this man didn't know how to express himself, so she never thought too much about it. However, when Si Han looked at her and said, "You think I really mind being ugly?" she felt an inexplicable feeling of sadness and disappointment towards this man. An unmeasurable amount of time went by and Yu Wanwan was still lost in thought when his low and hoarse voice rang out, "I'll go." After Si Han said that, he stood up and walked towards the door. Then, just as he was about to push the door open and leave, something tightened around his wrist. Yu Wanwan had subconsciously followed behind him, and she pulled at the edge of his shirt. "Thank you." Si Han didn't say a word and remained expressionless. The second Si Han was about to take another step to leave, Yu Wanwan suddenly said, "Why don't you stay the night?" Si Han's eyes flickered for a moment, then he lowered his gaze and looked at her. Yu Wanwan saw he didn't move, so she pulled his hand and led him back inside. "Your dark eye circles look darker again. When it's convenient for you, try to come over and stay over more. Whenever I have no work to attend to, I'll head back to Jean Garden to see you." Sensing that Si Han was staring at her, Yu Wanwan said, "What's the matter? Don't you sleep better when you're with me?" Worried that he would find her change in behavior too drastic, Yu Wanwan added, "Treat it like I'm returning a favor." "Thank you." She knew that to a controlling person like him, the compromise he made just now wasn't easy. Yu Wanwan sounded very calm, but she knew how she felt deep in her heart. Although Si Han's extreme paranoia and possessiveness towards her in her previous life caused her to suffer so much that she didn't want to live, he never lied or betrayed her. It was also because of him that she finally saw the true colors of Shinmeng Qi and Gu Yuzhe. She knew that she could never accept a relationship like this of such unequal status. It was like a dangerous wall that could crumble any time. She could never accept Si Han's unreasonable possessiveness and his unpredictable moods. But she also couldn't deny that after changing the way she interacted with him in this life, she was able to see him in a different light and was moved by him. She claimed she wasn't sure how she felt towards Si Han, but she was sure that at the very least, she didn't want him to die. Forget it. Since she couldn't figure it out, she would just go with the flow then. Even if she gained freedom, she didn't want it to be through his death. The night was extremely quiet. The two of them laid in bed in silence. Si Han was exceptionally still when he slept. There wasn't a single movement from him at all, so Yu Wanwan wasn't sure whether he had fallen asleep or not. Yu Wanwan felt uneasy and couldn't fall asleep, so she turned her head and asked gently, "Oh right, I almost forgot to ask you something, do you know Mei Jingzhou?" Si Han's usual cold voice came from her side. "No, I don't." Yu Wanwan blinked. "Eh? Weren't you the one who asked him to attend Grandpa's birthday banquet?" Si Han's tone didn't change. "No." Yu Wanwan. If she hadn't secretly asked Sui about it before, she would have almost believed he wasn't responsible. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. The next morning, after Si Han left, Yu Wanwan gave Sui a call. "Hello, Miss Wanwan?" Sui felt a little weird when Yu Wanwan called him so early in the morning. How's your master's health lately? Yuanwan got right to the point. Sui didn't understand Yuanwan's intention of asking this question, and he felt hesitant to answer it. Is it really bad? Yuanwan frowned. Sui carefully considered how he phrased his words. It's not optimistic indeed. Ninth Master hurt himself when he was young, and he hasn't recovered from his old illness all this time. Plus, his serious insomnia only worsens his condition. Before, the miracle doctor's son saw Ninth Master and even said with certainty. Said what with certainty? That if Ninth Master continued like this, his body would gradually be unable to handle it. Sui finally decided to answer truthfully. Yuanwan should have known all this after being by Si Han's side for 2 years, but she probably couldn't wait for Ninth Master to die, much less care about him. Yuanwan became silent instantly. As expected, his condition was identical to what it was like in her previous life. On the surface, Si Han didn't seem to have any problems. He never displayed his emotions, much less his pains. But the truth was that he had an entire body of illnesses. The year that she and Si Han got a divorce, he was so weak that he couldn't even put on an act anymore. When he went outside, he was usually confined to a wheelchair, and the number of times she got to see him became rare. What if he recuperates properly? Yuanwan asked. Sui pondered for a moment. I can't be sure. Ninth Master has a heavy workload. He needs to work for the family, the company, and maintain his power in other places. They all need him. In addition, with his sleeping disorder, it's almost impossible for him to recuperate properly. All right, I got it. Yuanwan hung up. She leaned against the wicker chair on the balcony and stared out the window in a daze, spiraling into a chaotic memory from the past. There were some things she had been preventing herself from probing or thinking about, but she still couldn't run away from them. If she didn't remember wrong, in just a few days' time, Si Han would lead a group of elites from the company along with the most advanced research and development equipment to Country B to negotiate with an important partner. Halfway through the journey towards Country B, Si Han would encounter a serious robbery. Not only would he suffer a disastrous loss of staff, but even his equipment would be robbed. Si Han would also be severely injured. She remembered that Si Han nearly lost his life during that robbery. It caused him to become bedridden for many months, and his already terrible body weakened further. The severe injuries sustained from that time were undoubtedly Si Han's amulet for a hastened death. Yuanwan wasn't sure whether this incident would happen again in this life. If it happened, no matter how he tried to recuperate, his body probably couldn't recover. Yuanwan shook her head and banished those nonsensical thoughts from her head. Maybe things will be different in this life? Furthermore, she hadn't heard about Si Han planning to go be country anytime soon. The next issue she had to worry about was Luo-chun. Yuanwan sighed again, then she took out her phone and called Luo-chun. In the end, nobody answered. After she called the second time, still nobody answered. But Luo-chun sent a text to her telling her that he was in training and couldn't take her call at the moment. Seems like he really was scared. Forget it. I'll just let him calm down first. If he was triggered by this little thing, everything she'd done up till now had all gone to waste. Yuanwan studied the script by herself the entire day, and before she knew it, it was already nighttime. Her phone rang, was a text from Si Han telling her that something came up at the company, and she didn't have to wait for him for dinner. Yuanwan stared at the text and frowned. Working late again? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Imperial City Northern Suburbs, a certain company under C Corporation. Si Han was discussing matters with a few people from the company's top management when Yuanwan arrived. Qin Ruoshi and Lu Ying were present as well. Everyone had a solemn expression. The moment he saw Yuanwan, Lu Ying's face darkened. Although the other higher-ups were very curious about Yuanwan, they guessed that she was the darling pet of their boss that they heard so much about. No matter how curious they were, everyone behaved themselves. They didn't dare to keep staring and focused intently on their discussion. As for Qin Ruoshi, when Yuanwan entered, She nodded politely and continued her report in a composed manner. Si Han's desk was piled with all sorts of documents, but the lunchbox sitting at the corner of his coffee table didn't appear touched at all. This guy has a whole body full of illnesses, and his stomach's also extremely weak, yet he still torments his body like that. Seeing her sudden arrival, Si Han motioned for her to find a place to sit and wait for a while. Yi Wanwan didn't move. She pursed her lips and looked at him. "You haven't had your dinner?" Si Han appeared like he hadn't expected her to come down just to ask this question. "Need to settle an important issue." Yi Wanwan's face turned gloomy. "Which issue of yours isn't important? No matter how important the issue is it more important than your life?" Si Han noticed she didn't look happy, so he took out a laptop from the drawer and passed it to her. "Go play with it for a while." Yi Wanwan's face turned even darker. "I'm not playing. I'm not here to play." Si Han didn't shun this woman no matter how important this issue was, and he even allowed her to sit in on such a classified meeting. She even threw a tantrum in front of everyone, so Lu Ying's face turned so ugly that it was on the verge of exploding. Sui wiped his sweat and kept his eyes on Lu Ying in case he couldn't control his violent temper. Qin Ruo, she still maintained a gentle and natural expression as she smiled and said, "Missy, don't be angry. Director C really has some important matters he has to discuss with us now. He'll be with you once he's done." Yi Wanwan had a shadow of a smile as she glanced at Qin Ruo, she being considerate, trying to help Si Han out. Yi Wanwan didn't bother with her. She took the laptop and went to the sofa. Si Han's meeting went on for a long time, so Yi Wanwan could do was use the laptop and read the news. During that time, her phone vibrated. It was a WeChat message from Han Xianyu. Han Xianyu sent a few photos to her, asking her which was better looking. Yi Wanwan scrolled through and chose one of the pictures. "This one. You look better on your left profile." Many stars had a nicer angle, and each time they were in front of the media, they deliberately showed that angle. For Han Xianyu, his left profile looked nicer. Han Xianyu replied with an "okay." Then Yi Wanwan swiped through a web page and saw that Han Xianyu posted a Weibo. "Someone said my left profile looks better?" The attached picture was the one Yi Wanwan chose. Sounds of sucking up appeared in the comments section. "Ah! Oh my god! My husband finally posted a selfie. I was waiting to the death for this. Handsome, handsome, handsome. Hubby looks good from every angle. Someone? Who's that someone? I smell adultery." Yi Wanwan swiped through Weibo distractedly while glancing in Si Han's direction from time to time. Seconds and minutes went by. Half an hour had passed in a blink of an eye, but Si Han and the others didn't appear like they were finishing anytime soon. When she thought about Si Han's frail body, Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows even tighter as her fingers rapped on the armrest of the sofa impatiently. Another 20 minutes passed, and the needle was pointing straight at 9 p.m. Her fingers rapping on the armrest stopped as Yi Wanwan stood up, took the cold lunchbox from the coffee table, and walked towards the lounge in the room. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Three minutes later, Yi Wanwan came out with the reheated lunchbox, then walked straight to Si Han, pulled out a chair by his side and sat down. Since Yi Wanwan arrived abruptly, everyone's eyes were on her instantly. The voice of a reporting staff member also paused as he cast an inquiring look over to Sui helplessly. Sui was stunned, unsure of what Yi Wanwan was planning to do. Something had been wrong with her ever since that call that morning. Yi Wanwan looked at all the people staring at her. "You guys may continue." When she finished speaking, she took the spoon and dug up a mouthful of rice, then brought it to Si Han's mouth. Si Han was taken aback. His dark eyes stared at the girl next to him with a tinge of uncertainty. Yi Wanwan maintained her feeding position and looked expressionlessly at Si Han, who was staring at her with a complicated expression. She said, "You only spoke 8 times throughout this 1 hour anyway. A total of 47 words. Simply eating wouldn't affect your discussion, right?" Seeing that Si Han didn't move, Yi Wanwan moved her spoon a little closer, giving him a look that read, "If you don't eat it, you'll die." Si Han stared at the girl's unhappy little face and was silent for a long time before he finally opened his mouth obediently. Yi Wanwan's face, which looked upset at the beginning, now turned slightly warmer. The others in the office looked at their boss being fed by a beauty and were left speechless. It doesn't affect our discussion? The problem was that they were going blind from this display of affection. The calm and composed Qin Ruo, she looked at Yi Wanwan, who was feeding Si Han at this moment, and her expression finally shifted slightly. She said, "I was negligent and forgot that Chairman Si hadn't had his dinner yet." Lu Ying scoffed, his eyes filled with detest. "Coming all the way here to do this? Who are you putting on a show for? Are you announcing your sovereignty?" After Sui heard what Qin Ruoshi said, his eyes shifted. Why does Miss Ruoshi sound like? It was because of her negligence that caused Ninth Master to miss his meal. The truth was that his master was a total workaholic. Once he started working, he wouldn't allow anyone to interrupt him, even Miss Ruoshi. Miss Ruoshi was very clear on his master's taboo, so she knew very well not to interfere too much. But right now, Yi Wanwan actually dared to interrupt his master's important discussion and even started feeding him. And master doesn't seem to be upset? Cough, everyone. Please go on. After Sui indicated for everyone to continue, they finally returned to their senses and quickly got back into the swing of things and continued giving their reports. But now, they couldn't help but discreetly look up at the two lovebirds from time to time. Seems like it's true that Ninth Master really pampers that woman to the heavens. Since when did we ever see such a humane side to our otherworldly boss? Initially, they felt that Boss and Miss Qin made a good pair, but now, comparing the two of them, these lovebirds looked more like a couple in love, right? Boss and Miss Qin seemed to be just colleagues. The profit of last quarter was? Qin Ruo, she was giving her report, but halfway through, she saw that Yi Wanwan was feeding Si Han a piece of celery, and she subconsciously blurted out, "Chairman Si doesn't eat celery." Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan lifted her head in surprise when she heard that. Si Han doesn't eat celery? In the corner, Lu Ying sneered. She doesn't even know Master's eating habits. You don't eat celery? Yi Wanwan looked at Si Han. Si Han glanced at her and replied casually, "Oh." Indeed, Qin Ruoshi knew him better, but this was also not surprising. Even if Yi Wanwan added up the duration of both her lives that she'd known Si Han, it was still shorter than the amount of time Qin Ruoshi had known him. Yi Wanwan retracted the chopsticks and prepared to feed him something else. In the end, before she could retract the chopsticks, it was emptied. Si Han swallowed the celery on the chopsticks without a change in expression. Yi Wanwan was taken aback, and she glanced at Si Han strangely. Didn't he say that he doesn't eat it? Lu Ying's smug look stiffened on his face. Sui covered his face silently. He knew this would happen. The point was not the dish but the person feeding it. When he saw that Yi Wanwan didn't move, Si Han tilted his head and gave her an inquiring gaze, which meant, continue feeding. Yi Wanwan blinked and fed him another piece of celery hesitantly. Si Han ate it again without a change in his expression. Everyone could tell that their boss was purposefully backing someone up and even unscrupulously stripping Qin Ruoshi of face. It was just a minor detail, but he immediately established who he treated as family. Everyone in the room turned to Qin Ruoshi instinctively, but there was no change in her expression either. After all, being able to reach her status today meant she was a force to be reckoned with. After Yi Wanwan was done feeding him, she didn't stay any longer and instantly headed back to the sofa. Another half an hour passed before Si Han was finally done. Have you finished? Yi Wanwan immediately lifted her head. Sui replied, Ninth Master still has to go to the headquarters for another meeting. Yi Wanwan's face turned gloomy instantly. What time is it already? He still has to attend a meeting at this late hour? Sui coughed lightly. This meeting is more important again? Yi Wanwan looked at Si Han and asked, can't you reschedule it? Qin Ruoshi explained, the meeting this time really is very important. It can't be delayed. I hope Miss Yi understands. Yi Wanwan didn't respond to Qin Ruo Shi and kept staring at Si Han. Si Han extended his hand and rubbed Yi Wanwan's head lightly. Go back first. Hearing that, the fury Yi Wanwan had kept inside rose in an instant. He only knows how to work. Is working more important than his life? Doesn't he know the condition of his own body? Yi Wanwan turned to Su Yi, suppressing the anger in her chest as she asked, how far is it from here to the headquarters? Seeing that the atmosphere between the two of them didn't seem too good, Su Yi answered carefully, about an hour or so. Yi Wanwan replied immediately, then I'll go as well. When Si Han heard that, he turned to her, confused. Yi Wanwan glared at him, upset. What are you looking at? Can I go? Si Han, up to you. They got into the car. Yi Wanwan and Si Han sat in the back seat together. Yi Wanwan was still mad, so she turned her head to the other side and sat on the opposite end of the seat, sulking. Si Han, who was engrossed with his laptop, finally noticed that his girlfriend was angry. He put away the laptop and looked at Yi Wanwan. He probably found her mood today particularly short-tempered, so he asked, are you on your period today? The veins in Yi Wanwan's forehead popped out in an instant. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Everyone in the company has prepared for this collaboration for more than 3 years. He has to go and won't be able to postpone it since it was arranged a long time ago, so Master must attend it personally. Miss Wanwan, do you have something to do next weekend? Yi Wanwan's expression darkened and she didn't answer. Considering what Sui said, Si Han has to go on this trip no matter what, and since it's extremely important, Si Han has to be there personally. It was almost impossible for me to stop him without a good reason. Everything's fine, so why can't he go? Could I say that Si Han would encounter tragedy and almost lose his life in Country B? Who would believe me? Must history repeat itself? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Once they arrived at the entrance to the office, Yi Wanwan woke Si Han up. Go on with your meeting. I'll head back first. Get Sui to take you. Probably because he was energized after getting some sleep. Si Han's tone was much gentler than usual. But Yi Wanwan's mood wasn't any better since she stared at a certain workaholic with pent-up frustration in her mind. She turned and left without saying a word. Truly, the Emperor's not worried, but the eunuch's worried to death. Grandview Park. After she returned, Yi Wanwan started to wonder how she could stop Si Han from sending himself to death. However, she couldn't come up with any good ideas even after pondering for half a day. She wasn't Qin Ruo Shi. What she said didn't hold much weight. Never mind, things would work out in the end. She'd just make him happy these next few days, and if it didn't work, there was still the beauty trap. Yi Wanwan sighed and changed into her men's clothes, then sent a text to Luo Chun. Come to my place in 5 minutes. She wanted to just settle this issue first. She wasn't sure what absurd thoughts this kid would think if she dragged this on. Yi Wanwan waited while staring at the time on her phone. Probably because she sounded quite harsh in the text. Luo Chen didn't dare to flake on her again, and her doorbell rang in 5 minutes sharp. Yi Wanwan, please come in. She didn't close the door. A pair of footsteps were heard. Luo Chen slowly pushed the door open and walked in. Luo Chen looked like he just showered. His hair was still slightly damp and his clothes were put on in such a rush that one side of his shoelaces was tied untidily, making her heart soften at the sight of him. What's worth mentioning was, on this hot summer day, Luo Chun was enveloped tightly in a thick coat. Yi Wanwan ran her eyes over his outfit and the corners of her mouth twitched. What was this kid thinking when I called him over? Sit. Yi Wanwan glanced at the sofa next to her and gestured to it. Luo Chen paused and strode towards her after a long time, but he didn't sit next to her and instead sat at the other end of the sofa. Yi Wanwan was dressed casually in slippers. Her posture was languid, and when she saw that, she furrowed her brows, dissatisfied. Why were you sitting so far away? Luo Chun pursed his lips and moved a little closer to her. It was really just a little, probably only the distance of a palm. Yuanwan was already in a bad mood today, and at this moment, her patience reached its limit, so she simply stood up and walked towards Luo Chun. The moment Yuanwan stood up, Luo Chen's entire body stiffened like a bow as he clenched his fists tightly. When she was almost right in front of him, Luo Chen couldn't sit around any longer, and he bolted up like a spring. However, before he could escape, Yuanwan pressed down hard on his shoulders and pushed him back down. Yuanwan remained in this position, pressing him down. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at him condescendingly with a cold glare. "Why are you running?" Luo Chen didn't know where to look and looked like he was ready to dash out the door in the next second, but at the same time, he restrained himself for some reason. Yi Wanwan stared at him and mouthed each word carefully. "Listen carefully to what I have to say next. Firstly, I'm not gay. Secondly, no matter what my sexual orientation is, I'm not interested in having relationships with the artists under me. Thirdly, unless I'm drunk, stay away from me and at any other time." Refer to the second statement. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan's gaze was locked on him, preventing him from escaping her gaze. Understood? Luo Chun was still digesting what she meant by her third statement, but when he heard what she said, he nodded subconsciously. Yi Wanwan was unsatisfied. "Speak up." Luo Chen hurriedly responded. "Understood." Yi Wanwan's expression then became gentler. "If I really wanted to do anything to you, I would have done it much earlier. Why would I wait till now? What I see in you is your real value. I know many managers are akin to pimps. Not only do they have unspoken rules with the artists under them, but they even make their artists drink and sleep with them. Because of this practice in the showbiz, those artists who are serious about acting and want to walk the right path become fools in the eyes of others instead. But I can guarantee that I will never force you to do those things. I'll be with you every step of the way, and you only have to focus on one thing: acting well. But this is based on the premise that you're worth making me spend so much energy on you." When he heard that, Luo Chen's face turned much warmer as he said firmly, "I will work hard." Yi Wanwan sat on the sofa and looked at him sternly. "Not only do you have to work hard, but you have to fight with your back to the river. This is your only chance for a comeback. You know very well yourself that Zhou and Bin has been keeping an eye on us. The only reason why we succeeded this time was all because we grabbed hold at a key moment and were in the right place at the right time. So he couldn't stop us even if he wanted to. If you fail this time, all the efforts you put in would go to waste, and you might never get such a good opportunity again in your lifetime." "Got it. It's good that you understand. Go and have an early night, and we'll talk about your script tomorrow." N. See family's old residence. The old madam looked at the stack of documents in the brown paper bag, and her fingers trembled vigorously. This is simply. A well-dressed socialite sat next to the old madam and said worriedly, "Grandma, don't be too agitated. I didn't dare to show you all this before because I was worried you'd get upset." The old madam looked at the stack of documents regarding Yi Wanwan in the paper bag and was filled with disbelief and wrath. "Are all these legitimate?" The socialite quickly replied, "Without a doubt. Grandma, if you don't believe them, you can do a check yourself." "Grandma, I hope you don't mind me being nosy. I heard a few bad things about this Missy from my sisters in the circle, but I didn't really believe them at first. After all, I trust in Ninth Brother's taste, but they made it sound so convincing and I was really worried about Ninth Brother. So I went to investigate by myself." "I didn't know the truth till I went to check myself, and when I did, who knew I would find so many unbelievable things? This Miss Yi not only took drugs, but she's promiscuous. She was chasing other men while dating Ninth Brother. This is simply. Our Ninth Brother is such an outstanding man. How could he date such a disgraceful woman?" The socialite's voice was full of indignation. The old madam shut her eyes. After a while, she finally suppressed all the emotions in her eyes and said, "All right, I got it. You may go now. The socialite furrowed her brows. Grandma, what are you planning to do with this Miss Yi? I heard that ninth brother is completely head over heels for this woman. I'm afraid you're the only person who could convince ninth brother. The old madam looked sharply at her. I know what to do, Chin Yu. Watch your mouth. You must not let anyone know about this. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Grandma, Chin Yu understands. We shouldn't air our dirty laundry in public. The socialite wanted to say more, but she was worried that going too far was as bad as falling short, so she bid farewell to the old madam and left obediently. After the socialite left, the old madam recovered her calm countenance. Old Zhong, go get someone to investigate. She knew her grandson wasn't someone who was reckless, so she didn't ask about Yuanwan's identity and past, even when she knew her family background differed drastically from Ce Han's. She didn't mind. As long as her grandson fancied this girl, this weary, old body would go all out to support his decision. But on the premise that this woman was true towards Ajio, she would not easily trust an outsider's words, but she had to find out the truth behind this. Since she knew about the rumors, she couldn't sit by and do nothing. Yes, the old housekeeper replied. During the gradually deepening night, the old madam couldn't sleep the entire night. The next morning, the housekeeper placed the information he gathered in front of her as fast as he could. Old madam, I already sent people to check. Once a person comes in contact with the kind of drug mischief you stated in her report, he or she would be addicted for life. Miss Yi has been living in Gene Garden these 2 years. According to the private doctors in Gene Garden, they did a full body checkup on Miss Yi, and everything was normal. There was no sign of that drug in her body, so it was most likely a rumor. The old madam's expression relaxed slightly, and she indicated for him to continue. Thus, housekeeper Zhong continued. As for her promiscuity, it's completely baseless. Miss Ye's social circle is very pure. It's just that what? Just that it was true that Miss Yi had a fiancé before she met Ninth Master. But we can't exactly say that Miss Yi betrayed Ninth Master since she didn't choose to be with Ninth Master willingly. The old madam was clearly surprised by this result. After all, there wasn't a woman who didn't like her grandson. Then why did she and Aju look so loving before? People have emotions after all. Maybe they developed feelings for one another after being together for some time. Housekeeper Zhong considered his words carefully before answering. The old madam took a deep breath. The space between her brows was filled with weariness. I don't have any expectations of her, and I don't care how they met. Since they're together now, I only wish for her to be true towards Ajio. Housekeeper Zhong consoled her. Ever since Ninth Young Master fell in love, he did change for the better, and Miss Yi doesn't seem like a treacherous sort of person. Today, I even heard from Assistant Sui that Miss Yi especially rushed down to the company to urge Ninth Young Master to have his meal. You know that Ninth Young Master doesn't care about anything else once he starts working, but that Miss Yi had her way with him and insisted that Ninth Young Master eat his meal even if she had to feed him. She even accompanied Ninth Master for a short time on the road. The children can take care of themselves. Ninth Young Master is blessed by the ancestors, old madam, so you don't have to worry too much. The old madam relaxed slightly and sighed. I hope so. During the week, Yi Wanwan had been closely monitoring Ce Han's whereabouts and movements, watching Ce Han's diet and sleep. Time flew by, and Ce Han would be going overseas the next day. The past few days, she hadn't found a suitable time or reason to stop him. She thought about it carefully. Ce Han could have given in to her over unimportant matters, but with such a big issue like this, he would never allow her to mess it up. Pillow talk and beauty traps couldn't possibly work, so she was probably only left with the ruse of inflicting an injury on herself to trick the enemy. Yi Wanwan was exasperated. She didn't have a choice, so she could only grit her teeth, drag out the trays of ice that she prepared in the freezer, and poured them all into the bathtub. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan soaked in the ice bath for almost half a day before crawling out of the bathtub, freezing and shivering. She had never gone through such torture ever since being reborn. She really risked such high stakes by playing with her health. After returning to the living room, Yuanwan packed everything she prepared the past few days and stuffed it all into a huge piece of luggage. Then she brought it along and returned to Jean Garden. When she flagged a taxi to head to Jean Garden, it was already late at night. Yuanwan passed the luggage in her hand to the servant to bring upstairs, then casually asked, "Is Ninth Master back yet?" "Miss Wanwan, he isn't," the servant replied. When Yuanwan heard that, she creased her brows tightly. For this project, Si Han had been working nonstop for almost 3 whole years, and lately, since this was a critical period, he worked overtime every day and couldn't get even 3 hours of sleep. And this was even with Yuanwan monitoring him closely, forcing him to take a nap whenever she saw an opportunity. She knew the state of his body very well. She knew very well that if he continued on this way, his health would decline dramatically, yet she didn't have any ideas on how to stop him. Yuanwan laid in bed and waited until dawn, but Si Han still hadn't returned. When she woke up, it was already the morning of the next day. There were remnants of a familiar, cold aura next to her. Seeing the bright sky outside, Yuanwan sobered up instantly, got up and bolted down the stairs. She saw a couple of cars parked at the entrance from afar. One of the people standing nearby was Si Han's main driver, while the others were his bodyguards. Si Han was discussing some matters to his servant at Jean Garden, and when he was done, he walked towards the gate. Sui jogged in front and opened the door of the back seat. Lu Ying and the others were also preparing to get into the car. Seeing that Si Han was about to leave, Yuanwan's eyes constricted immediately, and she dashed over as fast as she could. Just when Si Han took a step into the car, a strong force charged into him from behind. In the next second, he was hugged tightly at the waist by a bundle of sweet-smelling softness. Si Han was startled for a second, then he turned around. After that, he saw that Yuanwan's hair was in a total mess, and she was dressed in her pajamas with only one slipper on. She was panting, and her whole face was filled with anxiety. "You're not allowed to leave." Si Han stared at her bare foot and frowned. "Where's your other shoe?" "Considering the situation right now, who cares about my shoe?" Yuanwan panted as she grabbed onto Si Han's arm tightly and repeated anxiously, "Don't go. Don't go overseas. Don't go to Country B." In a moment, Sui, Lu Ying, the bodyguards, and everyone else's eyes were on Yuanwan. The servants saw what was happening and hurriedly ran to pick up Yuanwan's slipper. Si Han was about to help her put it on, but Yuanwan was so agitated that she kicked her other slipper off as well. "Don't bother with the slippers. Are you listening to me? Don't go to Country B." Yuanwan's mood had been fluctuating and unpredictable, hot-tempered and irritable lately, and Si Han had gotten used to it. He brushed this off as another tantrum of hers and said, "I'll be back in a week." Yuanwan was furious. "Come back my ass." Yes, you'll be back, but you would barely be alive by then." Yuanwan whimpered and glued herself to him. "No leaving, no leaving. I'm not feeling well. It's torture. Are you just going to leave me alone here?" Si Han knitted his brows. "Where are you feeling unwell?" Yuanwan replied instantly, "I feel faint and my vision's blurry. My limbs are weak, and I can't even breathe properly. It must be a fever." Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. When Si Han heard her, he extended his large palm and placed it on her forehead. After a moment, his face relaxed. "Temperature's normal. You don't have a fever." Yuanwan's expression turned gloomy. "What? I soaked in ice water for nothing. I actually already realized that when I woke up, I didn't have a fever and felt even more invigorated and could leap and run around." She didn't have a choice anymore and could only show off her acting skills. Yuanwan immediately protested. "Nonsense. Why do I feel so uncomfortable then? Your hand isn't accurate at all. Liar. You just want to leave. You just want to leave me here alone." To be safe, Si Han took a look at her. held her wrist up, and placed his fingers on it. Yi Wanwan looked at Si Han's actions and was stunned, completely dumbstruck. Damn. Since when did he learn how to take somebody's pulse? Yi Wanwan swiftly withdrew her hand, but Si Han had already roughly taken her pulse and knew she was fine. He said with a slight annoyance, "No messing around. Great White's in the backyard. Go play with it." "Oh, Great White. Great White's back? And he's in the backyard?" Yi Wanwan forced herself to resist this huge temptation and gritted her teeth. Then she clung to Si Han's waist, unwilling to let go. I don't want Great White. I want you. I want you to accompany me." Si Han was a little surprised and his heart inexplicably softened. "Did you have a nightmare?" Yi Wanwan's little head buried in his chest as she nodded repeatedly. I had a nightmare. I had a very, very scary nightmare. I dreamed that you were in danger during your trip to Country B, so can you not go?" Si Han caressed her hair. "It's always the other way around in dreams," Yi Wanwan exclaimed anxiously, "but it was very real. I remember every image and every detail very carefully. I remember that all of you were plotted against. I remember that you were seriously injured and almost lost your life." At this moment, Luing couldn't tolerate this anymore, so he turned to Yi Wanwan and said, "Miss Yi, I'm afraid you're overthinking. It was just a dream. How could you take it seriously? Master has our protection, so that would never ever happen. Please stop worrying." Yi Wanwan glared at him. "I know you guys are strong, but can you guarantee that there's no one out there stronger than all of you? How can you guarantee that there won't be any sudden attacks?" Luing perceived her words as trying to twist words and force logic on him. His eyes overflowed with hatred. He turned to Si Han and reminded him respectfully, "Master, we don't have much time left." Yi Wanwan panicked, so she stared at Si Han and said, "If you dare to leave, I'll go to the cellar immediately and drink all the alcohol. I'll hit on all the guys and girls in Imperial City once. When you're back, you'll have a whole prairie of Siberia in your house." Si Han. Yi Wanwan tiptoed and kissed his chin, then pulled him towards the house. Don't leave, stay with me." After speaking, she got closer to his ear and whispered in a volume only Si Han could hear. "Don't go, all right, let's go back into the house, we'll do some happy things." Si Han's deep eyes immediately turned gloomy. He pinched his brows and stared at a certain little girl ruffling feathers and courting death. "We'll delay leaving for half an hour." Finally, Si Han relented. With that said, he carried the barefoot Yi Wanwan and walked towards the house. Yi Wanwan whined, unsatisfied. "Huh, only half an hour? Isn't that a little too short?" Si Han. "Shut up. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." After Si Han left, Luing was so furious that he punched the car door. "Sick my ass. Rosy complexion and loud voice. How is she even sick? Harassing Master in front of so many people. She's completely shameless." A bodyguard by the side lamented, "This is my first time seeing boss girlfriend and she's a knockout. No wonder she could make someone like our boss reluctant to leave." Luing shot a look at the person who spoke and scoffed. "Femme fatale. She only knows how to throw a tantrum from day to night, harassing Master nonstop. She doesn't know the seriousness of the situation even at this point. Master will be driven to death by her someday." The others started to sigh too. With such an important matter, she's definitely a little inconsiderate. Could she bear responsibility for holding up negotiations? Ridiculous. Heard this woman is a daughter of a small and humble family, so obviously she wouldn't be as considerate as Miss Ruashi. Don't compare that kind of woman to Miss Ruashi. I don't know what boss is thinking. This kind of woman really isn't qualified to be the head of C family's household at all, right? In the bedroom upstairs, after she was given a warning, Yi Wanwan was still relentlessly whining softly in Si Han's embrace without any fear of death. "I didn't say anything wrong. It really is too short. Actually, I think 7 days might be enough." Si Han placed the girl on the sofa, loosened the tie around his collar, and stared at her. looking like he wanted to devour her. Yi Wanwan swallowed. She finally shut up and stopped making trouble. Si Han stared at her. Tell me, what are you trying to do? Yi Wanwan exploded in anger. What are you talking about? What can I do? I just can't bear for you to leave. I just don't want you to leave, all right? You're so insensitive. Fine. Leave. Just go. Go wherever you want. I won't care about you anymore. She thought of 1,000 ways and 100 plans to stop him from sending himself to his death. She froze herself till her bones ached last night and even suffered an insult of femme fatale by his men. It wasn't easy for her, all right? In the end, this bastard didn't even appreciate her kindness. Yi Wanwan took the blanket from the sofa and wrapped herself in it. The girl's depressing voice came from under the blanket. Baddie, pervert, great devil. So mean to me. So hateful. Always so cold. Not gentle at all. Why should I care about you? Just go wherever you want. An air of silence. After some time, Yi Wanwan thought Si Han had left, but then she felt a strong force removing the blanket. Yi Wanwan instantly grabbed onto one of the edges and didn't let go. Si Han used just a little strength and was able to pull away the blanket from Yi Wanwan. He was about to speak, but was unexpectedly faced with the girl's tearful little face. Yi Wanwan hugged her knees and wiped her face with her hands, then asked, expressionless, "What's the matter? Why haven't you left yet?" Si Han pursed his thin lips as if he was facing a great crisis or difficulty and stared at her, unmoving. A long while later, the man finally said, "Other than this request, I can't agree to anything else." Yi Wanwan paused when she heard that, then she turned her head slowly towards him. "Anything?" Si Han replied, "Yes." Yi Wanwan thought about it. "Then I want to go with you." Seeing that Si Han remained silent, Yi Wanwan acted up again and buried herself back into the blanket. In the next second, Si Han said, "All right." Yi Wanwan's face that had been frozen before finally warmed up. She rubbed her nose and raised both her arms towards the man. "Carry me there." Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Si Han turned to the girl who had both her arms raised towards him, and in the end, he obediently walked over, picked her up, and placed her on the bed. Yi Wanwan swiftly changed into her clothes, packed her luggage, and dragged it to the wall. Meanwhile, downstairs, "What did you say? That woman's coming along with us?" Upon hearing what Sui said, Lu Ying's face was filled with disbelief. Didn't expect that this woman would come along on this trip to harass Master when she couldn't stop him. She's totally outrageous. Sui coughed lightly. "Cough, yes, for the sake of convenience. We probably need to get a few female bodyguards." Lu Ying was enraged. "This is absurd. It's such an important matter. What are we bringing a hindrance of a woman for?" Sui sighed. Don't talk so badly about her. Do you want to be scolded again?" Ninth Master made up his mind. "So no matter how much you dislike her, she's still the one Ninth Master's chosen. If it wasn't for the fact that she's the one Ninth Master's chosen, do you think I would have tolerated this up till now?" Lu Ying's face was filled with rage while Yi Wanwan happily hooked arms with the Master and walked out of the house with a fresh outfit. There were also 2 bodyguards by the side, dragging her luggage for her. Yi Wanwan had a little pink carry-on, a larger piece of luggage, and an extremely large black luggage that was approximately 30 inches large that she brought over from her apartment the night before. After bringing the pieces of luggage down, everyone raised their brows at Yi Wanwan's various pieces of luggage, especially that shockingly huge one. She brought so many things. Is this big missy going on a holiday? Yi Wanwan couldn't care less about the looks from those people and warned, without a change in her expression. "Everything here includes my precious clothes and makeup. They have to be protected well, so don't lose them. Especially the black one." "Yes, miss." The bodyguards coughed lightly. Lu Ying jogged up to them and turned to Si Han anxiously. "Master, the journey is long and the road conditions are bad. If we bring Missy along, I'm afraid there'll be many delays." What he really meant was that Yi Wanwan would obstruct them. Yi Wanwan hugged Si Han's arm, pursed her lips, and gave a sidelong glance at Lu Ying. I have my boyfriend to take care of me. Don't you think you're worrying a little too much? Huh? Lu Ying was exasperated. Master's going on an important business meeting this time. If you really care about Master, you shouldn't be giving him trouble now. Before he could finish, Si Han shot him an icy glare. Lu Ying. Having received his master's warning, Lu Ying clenched his fists tightly and didn't make a sound. Seeing that Si Han was standing by her side, Yi Wanwan raised her head. She thought Lu Ying hadn't been triggered enough, so she kissed Si Han on both cheeks. As long as Lu Ying was angry, she'd be happy. As expected, once Lu Ying saw her shameless act, he immediately became even angrier. Yi Wanwan smiled wryly, curled her lips and glanced at Lu Ying before saying faintly, I think you should just be worried about yourself. I have nothing to do, so I'll read your fortune. You'll meet a bloody calamity on your first day in Country B. You'd better be careful. In her previous life, this incident involving Si Han getting robbed was a huge deal. After Si Han and the others returned, Yi Wanwan learned about everything that happened, including all the details from their conversations. From her memory, she recalled that Lu Ying got into a fight with someone on the first day they arrived in Country B for some reason. He even ended up breaking his head. Lu Ying perceived this as Yi Wanwan cursing him. He got so mad that his lungs nearly exploded. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.